Good morning, 6 o'clock, Sunday the 16th of July. Today, another top Tory quits. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has announced he's leaving government at the next cabinet reshuffle and won't stand at the next general election.
Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off on the UK's CPTPP membership. That's the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Rolls off the tongue. So how will this mouthful benefit our economy?
It's men's singles final day at Wimbledon. Could it be a little bit of history for 20-year-old Alcaraz?
And is it going to be another blustery day on the weather front?
Low pressure remains in control as we move into the second half of the weekend. Join me for the full weather forecast later to find out all the details.
That's a shirt. I'm Stephen Dixon. Good morning.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Is 8 a.m. too early to cut the lawn on a Sunday?
It's 2 hours from now. It's plenty of time, isn't it, to get up and get ready? And are you thinking of the neighbours?
I'm thinking of myself. If I wasn't here, I'd be asleep at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. There's no way I'd be awake, and I'd be very annoyed if anybody was mowing the lawn. 7 out of 10 people agree with me. Very annoyed by the wear of blades as they try to sleep in the morning.
Wait, what? Has this become a thing?
Apparently. Well, now you put me on the spot. Let me just break this down for you. 1 in 5 think it is acceptable. Some 22% say from 10 a.m. is an acceptable time.
Yeah, 10's fine.
Yeah, so this is a poll of 1,000 people. It shows that Britain is divided over when a lawnmower should be out in the morning. What do you think? When's the cut-off?
Yeah, you can't do it before. Well, 9 o'clock would be all right,
I think that's the crack of dawn.
8 o'clock is 8 o'clock's too early.
I'd say anything before 12 on a Sunday.
Mind you, mowers aren't that noisy nowadays.
Are they not?
No, you could probably strim at 8 o'clock.
Strim.
But I wouldn't lawn mow till at least 9.
Have you got one of those lawnmowers that you drive? Have you got like a little...
A tractor lawnmower, tractor mower.
You know what I mean? Like a...
Yeah. No.
Oh, I thought you would. It's got a lovely garden, does our Stephen.
Oh, no, you've got to push it.
Oh, right. And what time would you say is acceptable? From about 9?
From about 9-ish.
And your neighbours would be fine with that, you think?
Oh, we'd find out, won't we?
Yeah, we'll find out. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
We're not cutting the grass at the minute anyway, so that's all right. Well, because we reseeded the lawn. We scarified it and there wasn't much grass left afterwards, so we reseeded it all.
What's scarify?
It's
very complicated and
very technical. So we've reseeded, so it's just the new grass is growing through at the minute.
Oh, wow.
So there you go.
You're very into your gardening, aren't you? I haven't caught that. No, I haven't caught that bug. I haven't got green fingers.
She's not old enough yet. Come November.
Stop it.
And you hit the big...
Stop.
Big age.
Stop. We've both got big birthdays coming up, and let me tell you, when yours starts to creep up, I'll be reminding you every opportunity I get as well.
It's another 8 months away.
Yeah, see, I've got a few months to go as well. Not that you'd think it, the way he's going on. But I have still got many, many months to go.
Of being in your 20s.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll be 50.
I'm really stressed about my big birthday.
Now this is
very anxious.
Why do you get anxious about getting older?
Because I worry that I haven't done enough, or I'm not good enough yet, or, there's things that you want to do and tick off that I haven't done.
Do you know what's important about being in your 30s?
What?
It's when you first start to think, I don't care.
I'd like that to kick in. That would be nice.
I don't care what people think. I don't care what people expect of me. You just I'm just going... You find your path and I'm doing my own thing. I'm doing my path.
Yeah, I'd like that to kick in. I think that would be very, very beneficial.
But I'm not one of these people who thinks you need to worry about getting older, because the only alternative to getting older is not getting older.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, enjoy it.
You don't want to be stuck in time, do you?
You
There's also not anything... Well, you don't... Well,
you just got to go, well, here I am. I'm going for it now.
Yeah.
50.
No,
Bring on the 50s.
I think of it like that. Do you know what my mum says about the 20s and the 30s? She says, you spend your whole 20s being really anxious, which is what I'm describing, and feeling like you're not enough, or not doing enough, or not doing it at the right time, or not quick enough, or
That's
whatever.
true in your case, yeah.
30s, you just relax into it, and you're like, this is life.
Yeah.
And you've got a bit more money and hopefully independence, and you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, looking forward to it in that sense.
Yeah.
But also feeling very anxious. And thanks for reminding me at every opportunity that
I think you should embrace. You've got to love it. You've got to love it.
Well, I can't change it, can I?
No, you can't.
So your views, please, on lawnmowers and getting older. Please, this morning. We always go very random, don't we?
Yes, why not?
GBViews@gbnews.com.
But our main news this morning, news that broke sort of over the last 12 hours or so, Ben Wallace is stepping down as Defence Secretary after 4 years at the helm.
Yes, he served under 3 prime ministers. Wallace has overseen Britain's withdrawal from Afghanistan and our role in the latest conflict in Europe since the Second World War.
But it does represent another Conservative MP abandoning ship, doesn't it? That's going to be a concern. He's a big star. Let's talk to the local government editor for Conservative Home, Harry Phibbs. Good to see you this morning, Harry. How problematic is this? That this is someone, it's not just another person going, but it's actually someone the PM can rely on. He's seen as a solid figure, one of the grown-ups in the room.
Oh, yes, and he's somebody, we have polling in Conservative Home among Conservative Party members, and he always polls very high. He's right. He was always right at the top. So he's a big name, a big beast, and yes, he's standing down, and that will be a blow. I must say that I don't blame him. Obviously, being Defence Secretary in the last couple of years has been a pretty intense job, and I think the tribute that we should pay to him is that he's actually made a difference. A lot of ministers would sort of come and go and wouldn't really make much difference, whereas Ben Wallace was absolutely crucial before Russia invaded Ukraine in getting the supplies and the training to the Ukrainians in those weeks and months beforehand. And a lot of the establishment in the Ministry of Defence, the securocrats as they were dubbed, were actually pushing against that. And of course the other countries around the world were much slower than us to help the Ukrainians. And history could well have been different if Ben Wallace hadn't been pushing for that and hadn't persuaded Boris Johnson to support that at those early stages. It would have been far harder for the Ukrainians to withstand the Russian invasion when it first happened.
Harry, what do you think has brought this about? I mean, in the statement, Mr Wallace said he is stepping aside because this has taken a toll on his family, as you say. He has been a solid figure throughout huge events, such as the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Of course, you can accept that, can't you? Do you think any of this is a reflection of what Mr Wallace thinks of Mr Sunak's leadership?
I honestly don't. I mean, I think that Ben Wallace was so focused on getting that help to the Ukrainians that if you think about it, while he's been getting on with that, we've had Boris Johnson, then we had Liz Truss, then we had Rishi Sunak, and I think that they've given him the authority to get on with it and provide what help we can. And I don't think he's the sort of character who would be too much involved in plotting or whatever. I mean, I think he was disappointed about not being made the Secretary General of NATO, but Rishi Sunak was giving him full support for that. That was an international problem, wasn't it, with Joe Biden and some other countries not supporting him. So that will be a disappointment. But as I say, I think more important really than what sort of title he's got is that he was able to make absolutely crucial, historic difference. And there's very few ministers who can say that. I mean, there's Nick Gibb, for example, the schools minister, who did some work on phonics, which has meant that children are better able to read. You can have one or two examples. Obviously, Boris Johnson can share the credit over Ukraine for the early support. But the vast majority of ministers and cabinet ministers, they would find it hard to look back on anything of real significance that they achieved.
What about filling his boots then whenever this reshuffle happens, possibly in the autumn? I mean, the sort of obvious thought is someone like Johnny Mercer, the Veterans Minister. I guess the problem is, in some respects, he's almost a bit too pro the military, isn't he? And might find it very hard if there has to be some hard choices to be made.
I think he would be an interesting choice. He's a lively personality. He tends to veer off message, as they say, as does his wife from time to time, but he's somebody who's obviously would be popular choice in the military and is a strong communicator. I think what might be perhaps a sort of safer bet would be Tom Tugendhat, actually, is currently security minister, and I think he would probably be regarded as a safer choice. Perhaps sort of less inclined to get into rows with colleagues, but in a way, I think it now our support for Ukraine is now established and settled, and I think that will continue whoever the choice is. And now, of course, there's a big international coalition. So I think at this stage, it's I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but it's less significant than it was a couple of years ago when we were making those early decisions.
And Harry, what do you think is next for Ben Wallace? I mean, as you say, he is disappointed about not becoming the next Secretary-General of NATO, but he has been a really popular figure in the Conservative Party. It's hard to believe that this is the end of him in the political world.
Well, I hesitate to say he might look forward to a peerage because there's been some disappointments on that front. But he's going to continue as an MP until the general election. I would think that it's very likely that he would then be offered a peerage, which he then might accept. So that would give him an opportunity to continue in public life in one way or another. But I think it's perfectly understandable if he's thinking that that he'll want to avoid having to sort of get up every morning at this sort of time, be able to go and sort of mow the lawn or spend time with his family, as they say. He's probably not immediately thinking about some exciting new role on the world stage, but he's young enough that he might well be able to do that in the course of time.
Harry, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. It's going to be interesting to see what impact this all has actually on the PM. It is going to weaken him. There's no two ways about it. But if someone new comes in, actually Tom Tugendhat is a good call.
That's quite a good call, actually, Harry. Yeah, I agreed with that. But Johnny Mercer, he's definitely popular with members of the armed forces.
Well, he is. I just think he's a little bit too popular. In a sense, I mean, he will bat for the armed forces like nobody else.
Struggle to be impartial, wouldn't he?
Well, you've got sometimes tough calls have got to be made, but he's so passionate about what he does, and as veterans minister, I think it's great that has its own remit now. Yeah. So there you go, interesting.
But big boots to fill, you are right, and it's a crucial time for the Prime Minister as well, so it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens next, especially with that reshuffle, expecting in about September, aren't we?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Let us know what you think of that, or any of the stories that we're talking about today, gbnews@gbnews.com.
Meanwhile, Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off UK's membership to, brace yourselves, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. That all happened in New Zealand.
Yes, as a major Indo-Pacific trade bloc, this trade deal could gain British business access to a market of 500 million people with fewer barriers.
Let's talk to former advisor to the Bank of England and the Treasury, Dr Roger Gawab. Good to see you this morning, Roger. What do we make of the CPTPP? I mean, is it going to make a significant difference to us?
No, I don't think so. It's very nice to see some good news surrounding this government and something that really nobody can criticize, but yet there are critics. The pros and the cons. The pros are that this is one of the world's largest trade groups, but of course we're already doing business with 99% of the members, and it's only going to increase Britain's gross domestic product by less than 1%. But it's nice to join this Asia-Pacific group because it strengthens our ties with the new security alliance with Australia and the United States, helps us have allies in our defenses against China, etc. The critics on the other side are saying the government is gaslighting us as usual. This is not a replacement for the loss of the EU. It has as many members, but as I say, only 1% of GDP. And it's a bit, having passed Brexit but not really delivered it, they are saying it's kind of like being told short people are attractive after you've just had your legs amputated.
I mean, many of the papers this morning are heralding it as a great victory for Brexit. I get the sense that you wouldn't quite agree with that statement.
Well, I think they're two different things. The thing that's lacking in the CPTPP is the United States that initially was going to join, but then went and set up its own Indo-Pacific group. Of course, they are not members of the EU, and that was the whole point of the EU. So how valid a criticism that is, I don't know. But I don't think it's a great victory other than in perhaps the security sense and the sense that Britain is pivoting towards the Asia-Pacific axis, which is where all the action is happening these days, which is a very good thing.
Yeah, well, I suppose it might play out better in the long term in that sense. Can I ask you, Roger, as we've got you, because we've had some really interesting chats over recent months about interest rates and inflation and all these sort of things. What do you make of, I mean, look, the PM's promised to halve inflation by the end of the year, stalled at the moment, 8.7%. What's driving that stalling, and what can be done, if anything, to get inflation down by the end of the year?
I don't think that is likely, Stephen. I think two questions: what can be done and what is driving it? Basically, what is driving it is the PM and the Bank of England continuing to raise interest rates. We don't have the kind of inflation that can be combated by raising interest rates as they do, for example, in the States. You raise interest rates to curb consumer spending. We all know we're not spending a lot here. We're cutting back.
I mean, look, you've talked about this before. Explain this to me, Roger, because you've talked about this before and you make it sound like absolute perfect sense. You increase interest rates to curb spending, to lower inflation. But this inflation, you say, is being caused by things that we can't avoid spending on. So increasing interest rates makes no difference, just increases the pain. If it's that obvious, why are they still doing it?
That's a great question. It's the emperor's new clothes. They're so stuck in a rut now, and the sheer madness has gotten to the point where Andrew Bailey, the lovely governor of the Bank of England, has actually told us not to ask for wage rises and that companies should not seek to increase their profits too much because we're the ones driving inflation. No, what's driving inflation is the gigantic interest rate rises that he should have been making. I mean, I'm sure he meant well. He was appointed at the beginning of COVID. He wanted to keep British businesses from failing during the pandemic, so he kept interest rates low. But he should have started to raise them gradually sometime thereafter, not wait all this time and then dump them all on us in a year. The second thing is all of the money that they've printed too much at the wrong time. They just seem to have, and this is historic with the Bank of England back to the mid-19th century, they sometimes get the timing so wrong on inflation. Those are the things driving it. What can be done about it is that they can, first of all, not raise any more interest rates. And then I have laid out 6 things that they could do, which I've spoken about on GB News, to immediately alleviate a huge burden of the cost of living. If I can remember them all this morning: number 1, temporarily reduce VAT across the board. Number 2, temporarily reduce fuel duty. The government's take on fuel, when a liter of petrol was £1.80, they were taking over £1.50, reduced that temporarily, stop the interest rates, stop the mortgage crisis, and reverse the Mr. Hunt's recent 1/3 increase of corporation tax, which happened in April, and of course has by now been passed on to all of us. These are the things that are increasing inflation. It's insane. And they're going further, actually, if I can carry on for a second. Yeah. The proposal now is a flagrant political move to abandon inheritance tax. Yeah, sure, that's a great thing to do, but not right now, which will cost £7 billion. Okay, that's fine. Let's do that because we'll get the blue wall. We'll get the blue wall vote back that we lost. That $7 billion could have been used on nurses, doctors, rail strikes. Saved us all the misery from this summer. They've got $7 billion lying on the table that they're willing to get rid of, and they want to use it so that wealthier people can pass on their inheritance. I don't think so, Rishi. I really, Jeremy, these guys, is it stupidity? Is it they don't care? Is it? I have no idea how to answer that question, but it has gone way beyond the pale.
Well, Dr. Roger Giwab, absolutely fascinating to talk to you this morning, to get your opinion on that. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, good to see you.
And I think many people could actually agree with that.
Well, look, you've got to delve into it all. What I always find very interesting with Roger, though, is that he makes it... You can understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Which often you don't get with all this sort of economic policy. It all gets very, very complicated. He makes it sound straightforward. Now, does that mean he is right? Well, some people would agree with him, some people wouldn't. But he makes a strong case. I'll give him that. He makes a strong case. And so, therefore, someone should be listening, shouldn't he? And we need a response to that. It'd be nice to get Roger and a government economist on and arguing it out.
It would.
It would take an hour. It'd be an hour-long special, I should think.
Yeah.
But he just talk a lot of sense. And he's advised the UK Treasury, he's advised the Bank of England. He's a man who knows what he's on about.
He knows his stuff, doesn't he?
All this business about, the interest rate rises actually don't do anything to curb inflation. Why are we doing it then? Causing all this pain with people's mortgages and everything else. Crazy. And although, you see, I was saying yesterday, and this is what I love about what we do, I was all for, and sort of am all for getting rid of inheritance tax. I think it strikes me as a wicked tax, really, in a lot of ways. But there's Roger saying, well, actually, yeah, great, get rid of it. Not now.
Not now.
Not now. It's just a vote winner, and there are people in pain, and you can use that money in a better way.
Yeah.
And that's where you've got to listen and go, oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to get his point of view. Let us know what you think at home, gbviews@gbnews.com. And just on that trade deal, the CPTPP deal, there's a few things that could be cheaper for us now, once we become a full member of that trading bloc. UGG boots from Australia, I'm up for that, especially when the winter comes around. Shoes from Vietnam, electronics from Malaysia.
Shoes from Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants.
Blueberries from Chile, like a blueberry. Coffee from Peru. And maple syrup from Canada. That's according to the Institute of Export and International Trade. So they probably know what they're talking about.
So if you want UGG boots and maple syrup...
And blueberries...
You're on a winner.
You're on to a winner. Yeah, so that's a positive, isn't it?
And kiwis, by the look of that.
Oh, and kiwis on the... Kiwi fruit from New Zealand, yes.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a kiwi from New Zealand.
Yes, there you go. It's, yeah, they're not the most inspiring things.
No, I mean, I can think of other things.
The ugliest thing.
They are. Very in fashion at the moment, though, the short ones.
Are they?
Yeah. Stick with me, you'll be all right.
I'll
fill you in.
Can you imagine what I'd look like if I let her dress me in the morning?
No, I'd love
imagine.
that. I said to him he should be in orange today. He's let the team down.
Sorry.
I'll text you next time. Well, no.
You.
Now, should we move on? Because extreme heat continues to affect southern Europe, with the Italian Health Ministry now issuing red alerts for 16 cities across the country.
Yeah, they indicate risks even for healthy people, and they apply to a lot of tourist hotspots, including Rome and Florence.
Well, let's now speak to senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, Jim Dale, who can tell us more. Good morning to you, Jim. So this is a bit worrying, isn't it?
Good morning.
Yeah, these extreme health warnings.
Roger, by the way, 5 minutes ago, I thought he talked a hell of a lot of common sense. It's good to get that.
But yeah, well, yeah, I'll tell you what, Jim, though, it's whether or not, I mean, I like Roger a lot, but I've still got to say, is he right? He talks the talk, he makes it sound common sense, but if it, as I was saying to him, if it is common sense, why is nobody else doing it? That's what I don't understand.
Agendas, maybe, political agendas, the way they are, I don't know. It's not for me to answer that one, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, to me, breath of fresh air, what he was saying is obvious stuff.
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can give you some obvious stuff as well about the weather. Let's see if we can do that.
Well, I tell you what, Jim, it's really nice to know that you listen and to get your opinion on that as well. Why not?
Yeah, it's nice to know you've been engaged with us, Jim. That's great. But these health risks in Italy across 16 cities, that's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, they're taking their lead off last year. Doesn't seem a long time ago. And I think it's one of the Barcelona Health Institutes did a study, and they came out with the fact that around 60,000 people were affected by the heat and sadly died last year. So this is now becoming, how can I put this, the new abnormal, because it's abnormal. Yeah, that's where we are. When you get to these situations, they're taking stock, they're taking the measures they should take, the health measures for the population. It won't be everybody within that population that is going to suffer, and it's essentially going to be the vulnerable people, the elderly, the very young, the people who have problems with heat. But once you get into the 40 to 50 degree mark, which is where it's going to be, for example, in Rome today, we're expecting around 43, 44 degrees, which is higher than what we achieved last year in our peak period. Then yeah, the health practitioners very much say that you're on a losing wicket as far as your health is concerned, and you have to take the step. So this is what that government is doing. It's the right step. It's not the only place in Europe and or the world at this moment in time that is going through this heat barrier. I know we're not going in the UK, nothing like after yesterday, but nonetheless, it's in several of the continents, so it's not alone.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of trouble in the United States, isn't there? I mean, Death Valley, which is extremely hot anyway, but that's heading sort of almost to mid-50s, isn't it?
Yeah, the record is 56.7, which is a little bit of a dubious record. It was taken in 1913 in a place called Furnace Creek, a ranch out there somewhere. So 1913. However, we're probably going to see places like Las Vegas. I think there was a record, I can't remember where it was, that went yesterday in that area. So those areas around California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, they've been boiling for some time, and they're going to continue to do so. Now, I'm going to join some dots for you here. So we've talked about Europe to a degree, but it is Southern Europe, the Mediterranean, everything from Spain through southern France down to across Italy, Sardinia, Corsica, Turkey, and then North Africa. So there's two continents there, Europe and Africa. Then we got Asia. Records went there yesterday. The record there is 54 degrees in Iran, but we may well see, I think we saw 50 in China yesterday. And if we start to join these dots, so that's North America, Africa, Asia, Europe, they're all into the 50s for the records, and probably we will see close to, if not breaking those records. Algeria has already seen the 50 degrees. Then join the dots. That's called climate change. It's not the fact that these places don't get hot weather in the summertime at peak. Of course they do. We know that. That's what people go for their holidays for. But it's the add-on. That's what climate change does. It actually adds on several degrees in these cases. And when you get it happening all together across the globe, then something's going on.
I mean, Jim, the worry now is for local people, especially if you're living in Las Vegas or you're living in southern parts of Italy, you will be used to hot weather. You will be able to know what to do when those high temperatures hit. But for tourists who aren't used to it, you could actually get really quite sick, couldn't you, being exposed to those kind of temperatures?
That's a good question, Ellie. Where I come from, if the way that I would approach that is, if I was about to go on holiday, you get a bit excited. You arrive first day, you unpack your bags into the hotel or wherever you are, and then, you're heading for the beach, aren't you? That's the sort of thing that you do. And you're out there and you strip off, and maybe stay out a few hours longer than you should, and hey presto, you find yourself in hospital for the rest of your holiday. Because when we talk about these silly temperatures into the 50s, high 40s, mid 40s, that's shade temperature. Now, I've got a little tip, and it's a tip that I think is a good one to pack away with your suitcase, if you like, and that is, do as the locals do, because they do the right thing. There's an old saying, isn't there? Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Not an idle little rhyme, that one. I think it's probably true from the past that, you think we can bear it and all the rest of it, but the body does not do too well over 40 degrees. So when you see the locals disappearing into their little white houses and all the rest of it, across the Mediterranean, that's what you should be doing as well. Take the siesta. Do as they do. Make sure you're hydrated. Even take those hydration pills. You can do this. When you get these pills for runners, where if you go on a 5 or a 10K or a marathon, they take these hydration pills either before or after. Well, why not take them? Why not pack them with you? So in case you do go down with a little bit of minimum water level, if you like, those things will help. So yeah, the big one is do as the locals do. Disappear for a few hours in the afternoon, come back out in the evening. You'll probably enjoy your holiday a lot better.
What's not to love about a siesta?
Yeah.
That's what I say. Jim, thanks very much. Got to ask you, just briefly, because it's a piece in the Mail this morning, is 8 o'clock too early to cut your grass on a Sunday?
It's for gardeners, that one.
You've got a nice garden.
In the UK at the moment, you're going to be struggling with all the wet weather around. I would say in the heat wave weather, if you're out there, that's a great time to do it. Come on. Except this, it's Sunday morning. People are lying in, aren't they? Apart from people that are watching yourselves.
It's the middle of the night, 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
8 p.m. Sorry, I thought you said 8 a.m.
No, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. It's just Ellie's lazy. When she's not working, she's extremely lazy.
It's crazy. Forget it.
That's my attempt at a joke, Jim. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you very much. Now, you know that phrase, mad dogs and Englishmen only go out in the midday sun? I must have a mad dog. She loves to sunbathe.
Does she?
Yeah, it's just I've just connected all the dots. Yeah, the last time we had a bit of a heat wave, we put out a paddling pool for her. We're desperately trying to keep her cool. I was really panicking, kept dunking her in the sink.
Oh, lovely.
And she just sits in the sun. She can't help herself.
Yeah.
Must be mad.
Yeah.
Crackers, as you'd say.
Oh, I do say that, don't I?
You do. Yeah, I'm picking up.
Crackers. Yeah. Now, whether it's hot or not, it's going to be on Stephanie's radar. She'll have all the showbiz news coming up very shortly. But first, what is the weather going to be like for you today? Let's have the forecast.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east, might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible though as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
9:36 morning. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Did you just say 9:36?
Did I? Yeah. Oh, it's 6:36.
Yeah. Well,
9:36 will be off air.
We'd be gone, darling.
Be Camilla Tominey on.
Yeah, you're wishing the morning away.
I'm losing my marbles this morning. There you go.
9:36. Anyway. 6:36.
Apologies if you're panicking now, if you're listening in bed half asleep.
You thought you dozed off.
For the duvet. Sorry, should have got loads of time.
You thought you'd doze off and miss 3 hours of your life. Anyway, only 6:30. We've got lots more to come, including Showbiz Roundup with our lovely Stephanie Tetty, who joins us now.
Good morning, Ellie and Stephen.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you both?
Good. We are fab.
Vision in peach this morning.
I know, I'm feeling a bit peachy today.
Right.
You look gorgeous.
Thank you, darling.
Now, should we start with Barbie? Because Barbie isn't suitable for children.
No, Barbie is a worldwide loved icon. You know, she is marketed to young children as young as 3. And, you know, with the movie coming out, you can imagine a lot of children want to go see it just because there's been a lot of hype, a lot of fanfare about it. But the British Board of Film Classification have rated it 12A, which means it's suitable for under 12s, which have kind of got a lot of parents talking about why has the movie included such risky content? Why have they given it a 12A? They said it's got moderate innuendos, brief sexual harassment and implied strong language. So these are kind of topics that parents might not want their children to see on screen. So it makes it quite a tough one.
Yeah, but aren't some of these movies meant to be a bit more adult-based? I mean, it's a bit like the old... you two probably don't remember it. Basil Brush. Who was a kid's... It was a kid's... But actually, the content was very adult.
Yeah.
It's just the kids didn't get it.
Well, that's the thing where I think, you know, it's up to each parent to decide, but I think parents thought it would have been more friendly and would have stayed from such topics because we have, like, scenes such as Barbie being harassed by a group of men and she ends up punching them in the face. So it's quite a really big topic for parents, whether, you know, they should send their children to watch it. Margot Robbie has said that Barbie is supposed to be for everyone, and we have a clip of her talking about whether it's a children's movie or not.
Is this a kids' movie or is it not a kids' movie?
It's this is such like a thing people say when they do press for a movie. They're like, it's for everyone. But it was literally crafted to be for everyone. Like this, Greta said from the beginning, like, this is a big party and everyone is invited.
Well, clearly not everyone is invited because I think parents will have to make that tough decision whether they do send their children to watch Barbie when it comes out. I think it's on the 21st of July.
Right.
Can I just say, though, the promo for this film, I mean, it is everywhere. I mean, all the shops and stuff are doing their Barbie collection.
I think they've really hit the nail on the head with the Barbie promo. I think because it's such an iconic character and there's been a lot of hype over the past few years. And so far, the first reviews that have come out have been amazing. I'm going to watch it tomorrow. And I can't wait. I've already got my pink dress ready, guys.
It's easy. It's easy to promote, isn't it? Because all you have to do is put stuff in pink.
Well, definitely.
But even your notes this morning.
It's
come on brand.
It's pink. It's pink. So I do think it's going to be a blockbuster, and I do think it's a shame that children might miss out on this because, as I said, you have children who are playing with Barbie from when they're 3 years old, and I can imagine a lot of kids do want to see it.
OK, let's talk about Angela Rippon.
Our very own.
Our very own Angela Rippon.
Our very own Angela
of course,
Rippon.
Made famous back in, I think it was 1976, when she was a newsreader already, but then she went on Morecambe and Wise. And the world exploded.
And she'd done a lot of high kicks. I think 25 million people were watching when she came from her news decks and started doing the high kicks. But now it seems like she may be doing the high kicks on the Strictly dance floor. I do want us to get a hold of Angela this morning to find out, for her to give us the scoop. But she, if reports are true, Angela is set to be the oldest contestant at the age of 78 to be taken to the Strictly dance floor. BBC bosses are saying this is a very big coup because she is known for presenting cum dancing. So now, about 25 years later, to have her on the dance floor, and at that age, it will be quite impressive. One thing people are liking about Strictly with older contestants is they're kind of defying the stereotypes, that it's not just about the young, shiny faces on the dance floor. So who knows? Angela might be lifting up the glitterball trophy.
Well, I think she should be in with a good chance.
I think she'll be in with a very good chance.
I will be, because she's very quite dedicated, and apparently she loves dancing as well.
She still does.
And
she's in great shape.
She is. So I can imagine learning those dance moves, because her brain's quite active. I think she might do a really good job, actually.
I mean, she's incredibly fit. She's incredibly well. When she was doing a few shows earlier in the year, and I was moaning about my hamstring. Well, she decided to demonstrate how to touch the spread your toes and touch the floor with your head. All this, honestly, I thought she was way more supple than me.
Wow. She's quite active, and I think, you know, sometimes people think that the BBC get these older contestants as a joke, comedic acts, but when you're getting big names such as this, we had Leslie Joseph a few years ago, who at the age of 72 done a really good job. I think the older contestants do surprise us all, but I do want to see you two on Strictly one day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I'll tell you what, if Angela goes onto the dance floor, she will be in it to win it.
Of course.
She won't go to mess about.
No.
She's not going for the PR. She doesn't need it.
Yeah, she just wants to prove her point. So I do want to talk to Angela if you're watching.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we can get her. I sent her an email this morning. I hope she picks it up.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Might be having a lie-in, though.
Find out the
I wouldn't blame her. The prep for Strictly.
Look how on brand we are. That's pink as well.
We're so Barbie.
Yeah.
Barbie core.
This is a Barbie special.
I think we should have a GB Barbie doll. That would be
great.
As long as I can be the Ken.
Oh, you're always the Ken.
Stephanie, thank you so much.
Guys.
See you later on.
See you in a bit.
Plenty more to come, including all the stories making the headlines in the papers. This is Breakfast.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Let's have a look at the newspapers for you this morning. First pick of the day, The Independent. Kate the Consoler. The princess's hug for beaten Jabeur as the Tunisian lost in a heartbreaking defeat, well, for her, against Marketa Vondrousova.
Oh, that was a lovely moment yesterday, wasn't it? Newfound freedom.
When she lost.
No, when Catherine cuddled her.
Oh, I see. I thought you were
It was
just...
really lovely. Well, not when she lost, that would be mean, but when Catherine cuddled her, I thought that was really nice. Newfound freedom outside of the EU, the Express say, as Britain signs a historic treaty to join the £12 trillion Indo-Pacific trade bloc.
Starmer uses his party to focus on the hard grind of rebuilding economic credibility. That's on the front of The Observer.
Heartbreak for TV couple. Helen George and Jack Ashton have called it quits, according to the Mirror. Now, do you have a favourite TV couple? Do let us know. You can send in your views, gbviews@gbnews.com.
It might be us.
Could be us.
And for the Sunday Telegraph, Environment Watchdog calls for ULEZ-style travel restrictions to be approved. That's going to be controversial.
Yeah. Well, it's time to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning is editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, alongside writer Candice Holdsworth. Very good to see you both. Thank you so much for your company. And Tom, this is an interesting story, isn't it, in the Daily Star. Stag do's and Just Stop Oil.
Yes, so some people might have seen this picture doing the rounds on social media. Very, very funny. So whenever it's a stag do, you think, what can you dress the groom to be up as that will get him the most aggro, the most abuse, the most humiliation? So this gentleman and his group of friends, they were going to the Grand Prix at Silverstone. They thought, we'll dress him up as a Just Stop Oil supporter. So as a consequence of this, he was harassed, not just by members of the public who were probably worried he was going to run onto the track or whatever, but also by the police, who were in constant fear that he was about to throw confetti all over the grid or whatever.
Or get run over.
Oh, exactly. So this is a stroke of genius on behalf of this man's friends.
It is a stroke of genius, but is it a step too far?
Oh, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I laughed, so, you know, from a distance. But I was saying this to Candice earlier. A friend of mine went on a stag do a few years ago, which was at Glastonbury. So they thought, what can we dress the groom up as that will get him the most abuse possible? And they settled on Margaret Thatcher, which I thought was actually a genius
That's
move,
also genius.
given the demographics.
Oh, there's your Just Stop Oil fella.
He wouldn't get a moment's peace, would he, at Silverstone?
No. I think that's great, though, because it actually says how much people dislike Just Stop Oil.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's true. Especially at somewhere like Silverstone. Petrol heads, aren't they? Candice, what do you think?
I think it's brilliant, and I think it does show they don't have popular support. I mean, there's sort of this impression that loads of people are behind them, and I think they think ordinary people are behind them, but not at all. And they have done polls now which show that the vast majority of people disagree with their methods, but they're still funded by very wealthy multimillionaires from places like Silicon Valley who are still paying them to do this. And you just wonder, at what point are they going to withdraw that support? I know there was a very high-profile one in the Times recently who said he was completely put off by their antics, and so he wasn't going to be supporting them anymore. But plenty of the people he knew in his circles still were.
Yeah, yeah. Let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph, Candice. And ULEZ, which, if you don't live in London, is this ultra-low emission zone, which basically gets people with older cars. And this green watchdog says it needs expanding.
Yeah, so this is in the Telegraph, and so it's very critical of this watchdog, which is Natural England, putting pressure on local councils to implement these ultra-low emission zones. And basically adhering to clean air regulations. And one of the places they mention is Epping Forest in Essex, where there's a bit of a battle going on to build about 125,000 new homes, but pressure's coming from Natural England to have a ULEZ-type scheme, but they don't want to do it because they know how controversial it is. I mean, it's torn apart places like Oxford, where there have been these huge fights over ULEZ between local people, the council, and obviously people who want this scheme to go ahead. And that people are saying, just stay away from this. Don't try and implement this here.
Why do they need to do it? Because, I mean, if we're meant to be going to... You know, you're not going to be able to buy a petrol or diesel car in another 6 years, 7 years. Why do they need to start implementing all this stuff now?
Yeah, and also as well, I mean, there are genuine concerns for people who need cars to get around. Older people, people with children. And unless you actually do genuinely live in an area where everything is in with walking distance, it's a problem. I thought Panorama did a really good even-handed documentary on it a few weeks ago, showing just how much extra time is added to people's journeys with the implementation of these ULEZ schemes. So, I mean, the opposition to it is genuine. I think sometimes it's characterised as a bit conspiratorial, and I think there are some conspiratorial elements for sure, but it's not exclusively that. It's honestly people saying, you are making my life more difficult. I mean, a lot of restaurant owners also say they've seen a fall in customers because people live too far away to walk.
Well, it's penalising people who can't afford a newer car.
Yes,
basically.
yes, yeah, older people in particular.
Yeah. And it's not just a London story as well. It's worth remembering you're seeing these spring up across the country. You're seeing it spring up even not necessarily in city centres, as you were suggesting. So this is something which, for whatever reason, councils of all types are being pretty attached to, not least because it's also another revenue stream.
It's a revenue
This
stream,
is another thing which really makes it even more irritating to members of the public, I think. They sense that they're having these targets brought down upon their heads. They are really disproportionately affecting people who can't afford it, but at the same time it's also just another way to fill up the council coffers.
Yeah, yeah, that's the bottom line.
Tom, should we look at the Sunday Express and the huge Brexit breakthrough, which is being described on their front page?
Yes, so as you've already been talking about, the UK formally joining the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, almost got there in the end, so this collection of 11 countries, £12 trillion worth of potential trade there. That's the
thing, is that a slightly deceptive figure?
It is. I mean, it makes it sound like all of that money is just going to flow into the UK
into us, yeah.
Right now. As you were talking about earlier, people have pointed out that really this could account for probably less than 1% of UK GDP. It's a longer-term bet, I think it's fair to say. It's part of a kind of broader geopolitical tilt towards the Indo-Pacific, towards where it is expected not only that there's potentially going to be more conflict in the world, therefore you want better alliances with the democracies in that region, but also because of the fact that so much of kind of future growth in the near future is going to come from that part of the world. So it's not necessarily it's going to transform things overnight, but it shows one argument that those of us on the Brexit side have always made, is that particularly in a kind of changing world, you need that ability as a nation state to be nimble, to tilt towards where you need to tilt towards, to strike up partnerships outside of that very clunky, slow kind of EU umbrella, but it's not the thing that's going to kind of transform economic fortunes overnight, but I don't think that's necessarily what it was ever about in the first place.
No, I suppose if it's a step in the right direction.
Let's hope so. We'll see. I mean, they're talking it up, you know, they're saying that this is access to these huge markets. Let's see if that is actually the case. One of my issues always was, and I was talking to Tom about this earlier, with them promising these big trade deals, I always felt like they were trying to counter the economic argument put forward by, say, George Osborne, that would say leaving the EU is going to really damage our trading balance. So, you know, we need to go and seek out all these other deals. And now they are, and I hope that they actually bear fruit and bring in cheaper goods, cheaper services, which was always promised.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Shall we have a look at the Princess of Wales?
Yes, yes, yes.
Cuddling...
Anjabur.
Yes, yeah, this is a story in the Mirror. She was at the Wimbledon women's final yesterday, looking very emotional, actually. She was really getting into it. And she comforted the the loser. She's been pictured quite a lot at Wimbledon. It seems to be very much part of her brand. She's quite a sporty person.
Yeah, well, she's got an official capacity, hasn't she?
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't know what it is now, but she's like the head of Wimbledon or
All England law,
that's
tennis.
I have a slightly controversial opinion on it, though. I've always loved Kate's style, always loved the way it always had, like, historical references and was beautifully tailored. But I think lately she's looking a little dowdy. I don't love this new look.
No,
I don't.
it's a very dowdy look. It's a very dowdy outfit, and she's based it on... Look at her face.
I've got the same dress. Yes.
Very dowdy.
See, I really love this look.
Yeah, see, everyone's got different opinions.
Yeah, everyone's got different.
She has got amazing style.
Don't backtrack.
I'm not.
Don't backtrack.
You've
just slagged off Ellie's favourite outfit. The fact she's got pictures lined up for the top of the next hour of her and Catherine next to each other in the same hour. She's got it all lined up, ready to go. You've just said she looks
I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have gone there. It's too controversial.
No, it's fabulous. If I had money, I'd give it to you. Absolutely bloody brilliant.
There I was thinking I was a trendsetter.
No, you're dowdy.
I've been humbled. I'm dowdy.
Dowdy.
Candice, I thought we were friends.
We are. This is terrible. This is shocking. I've touched the third rail of GBNews.
Oh, you can't make that up, can you?
No.
That's fabulous. Oh, dear. Well, I've been humbled. That serves me right.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, dear.
Just very quickly, would you mow your lawn, Tom, if you had one, at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning? Yes or no?
No, I don't have a lawn, and I wouldn't. Not 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
No. And in Torquay says, in France, it's illegal to use your lawnmower or any noisy machinery on Sundays outside 10 to midday.
Genius.
There you go. Keep your thoughts coming through. GBViews at gbnews.com. It's not a day to mow your lawn, though. Here's your weather.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible, though, as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Morning, 7 o'clock, Sunday, the 16th of July. Today, another top Tory quits. The Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, has announced he's leaving government at the next reshuffle, and he won't stand at the next general election.
Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off on the UK's CPTPP membership. That's the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. But how will this mouthful benefit our economy?
It's men's singles final day at Wimbledon. Could it be a day of history, though, for 20-year-old Alcaraz?
And is it going to be another blustery day on the weather front?
Low pressure remains in control as we move into the second half of the weekend. Join me for the full weather forecast later to find out all the details.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
So let's talk dowdy fashion. Dowdy fashion.
This is so embarrassing now.
Yes, you've absolutely ruined it.
I've really ruined it for myself. So anyway...
If you enjoyed Candice Holdsworth on the papers, she won't be back now.
She's not ever coming back.
No, we've sent her out the building.
Yeah.
Literally.
She's no longer my friend. So this is Princess of Wales yesterday. She's doing the rounds in all the papers because she looked fabulous, may I say, Candice Holdsworth, in this lime green number, who I think... Yeah, there she is, looking absolutely wonderful in that dress yesterday.
And where did she get the inspiration?
Exactly. And I feel like it could have been from yours truly, who wore the very same dress at Ascot a month ago.
Yeah, hers had a collar on, though.
I've got the bejewelled version. She's got the higher neck version.
Oh, I see.
There we are, side by side. So same dress, same brand, but just slightly different versions. And I'm going to say mine is not dowdy. Mine's just the bejazzled.
Oh, it's like a pair of
Essex
frumps. So frumpy. So frumpy.
You're not a fan, no?
No, I think, to be fair, I am a fan. I think it was a little bit... And on the day, I said you looked a vision in lime.
You did say I look like a vision in lime. No, you said pistachio.
Oh, pistachio, I did.
And then I said lime.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you come over to my way of thinking.
No, I do. Yeah, I think it's lovely. And I actually think Kate looks lovely.
Oh, well, there you go. So we've got you on side.
You have got me on
Candice.
side. But Candice, I just think that was television gold, frankly.
You couldn't make it up, could you? I was so proud that myself and... Because I love the Princess of Wales. I'm obsessed with that. So the fact that we dress the same just makes me think we could be best friends. But I don't want to be dowdy. So.
No, you're not dowdy. Neither of you are dowdy.
Oh, well, thanks,
As you say, don't worry about it.
At least you don't.
I've just been outside. I have had Candice removed from the building.
And she won't be coming back.
And she won't be bringing so papers with Tom Slater on his own for the rest of the show.
And he can handle it. And he won't call me dowdy.
Fine. Be fine.
Anyway.
We've been on about age as well this morning, because we've both got big birthdays coming up. I mean,
Not for a very long time.
Mine is not until next year.
Mine's not till the end of this year. So
and, you know, I'm not bothered about it. I think I'm... When people say to you, what's your happiest age? It's, well, the age I am now. Life just keeps getting better.
Stephen, that's lovely.
Life does keep getting better.
Oh, it gives us hope.
I have never been happier, ladies and gentlemen.
That's really nice.
Which is lovely, isn't it?
That is a really nice thing to say.
Never been happier. I'm happy at home, happy at work, apart from when you're on. It's all going really, really well. Anyway, don't panic about your age. Jane says, I'm 67 and in good health. I'm a great believer that ageing is a privilege that is not afforded to a lot of people. I agree. So I'm very thankful for my age and my wrinkles. And it does say, not to start doing Bible quotes, but it does say somewhere in the Bible, I remember from donkeys years ago, that you should wear grey hair, wear your grey hairs like a crown. It's that book of Proverbs or something. Oh. But I've always remembered that from when I was a kid.
No.
And thought...
Wear your grey hairs like a crown.
Like a crown. Oh. And I like that.
That's good. Yeah, that's a nice way of thinking about it. Linda says she spent her 20s serving in the army, 30s having her girls, 40s is difficult because she got a new career and went through a divorce. A horrible time, but the 50s have been so different. She's past the caring what others think stage. She's now a confident granny and says life is good, and I love starting my day with you two.
And we love starting it with you, Linda. Paul in Cheshire says, wait until you're in your 70s. I'm 75 and a half. Like Adrian Mole. And not only don't care what anyone thinks of my views, I go even further and irritate those who deserve to be wound up. The list grows longer every day. I'm a bit like that, Paul. I do... If I know someone's, like, really touchy over something, I do sort of wind them up a bit.
Yeah. I'll hear about this dress for the rest of the day now.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. But I think that's the key to an older age happiness, is that as long as you're happy in yourself, and as long as you're kind, and a kind person, I think that's important. But you don't have to care what anyone else thinks.
No.
If someone doesn't like what you do, or what you wear, or what you think of something, well...
What does it matter?
Tough.
Yeah, exactly. We're also talking about mowing lawns, because in one of the papers this morning it's saying...
Keep it well trimmed.
Now? Got to keep it well trimmed. It's 8 a.m. too early to cut the lawn on a Sunday. That's what page 3 of the Daily Mail is asking this morning. Tony in Suffolk says, not allowed on Sunday in Germany. You're also not allowed to put the washing out. Now, is that true?
Oh, that must be.
It's very sensible, the Germans.
I love this. This is Tom. Tom, not Tony. Tom says, I think mowing from 8 a.m. is fine, and even earlier if your neighbours had a party till 1 or 2 in the morning.
That's cruel.
No, that's great. I love that.
Cruel.
Absolutely.
I would be very much asleep at 8 a.m. on a Sunday if I wasn't sat with you.
Mick says, I think 8 is fine. The only reason people need a lie-in is because they've had too much to drink the night before.
Yeah, and so they should be. It's Saturday night. Ron makes the point, how about some consideration for those of us who work nights and are trying to sleep during the day?
Exactly.
That is very annoying, actually, when I try and go for a nap and people are going about their lives, like, it's the middle of the night.
I had people the other... What time did I go to bed on Thursday? It was about 8:30, something like that. And it was still quite light outside, but I had neighbours with loads of fireworks.
Oh, what was that in
I had no idea, and it wasn't even dark.
Oh.
But loads of fireworks, and I was lying there, you know...
Need some earplugs.
Trying to listen to my audio book and not being able to hear it because of fireworks.
Oh, do you listen to audiobooks before you go to bed?
Yeah, I drift off to an audiobook.
That's so sweet.
Takes me forever to get through.
Oh, hello.
Takes me forever to get through them, because every night then when I get into bed I have to... I do it on Alexa. And I have to get a rewind 45 minutes, rewind another minute, rewind another minute.
What, because you're dozing off?
Because I've dozed off after 10 minutes and it runs for an hour.
Well, it's good that makes you sleep. I think that's something that happens with age as well. You need more ploys to get yourself to sleep.
Oh, maybe.
I need earplugs now, and I'm getting very close to needing an eye mask.
No, you're such a princess.
I know. I need a silk pillowcase as well.
Oh, you've got silk pyjamas, haven't you?
I do. The fact you know that is...
Still fine,
I think I've taken a selfie before, haven't I? And I've been in my little silk.
She does send me selfies.
Anyway, we'll move along.
Perfectly legal.
Do keep your views coming in. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, on to some proper news for you, because we've been talking for 8.5 minutes. Ben Wallace is to step down as Defence Secretary after 4 years.
Yes, he served under 3 prime ministers, and Wallace has overseen Britain's withdrawal from Afghanistan and our role in the largest conflict in Europe since the Second World War.
But what it does mean is another leading Conservative MP leaving government, leaving the party, ultimately, the next election. Let's talk to academic and professor of politics, Matt Goodwin, who joins us now. Matt, morning to you. I mean, look, you can understand, whatever his reasons, you can understand he's had enough, he's put his time in, all the rest of it. But it is, regardless, a blow, isn't it, for the Prime Minister to lose someone who is so senior and a grown-up in the room?
Absolutely, it's a big blow, and it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Ben Wallace as a potential Conservative Party leader. Now, if you read his comments this morning, he's saying it's mainly because of family reasons. He's had a difficult time at home carrying this big job in government alongside having young children. But don't forget, this is coming only a few days before those very awkward by-elections for Rishi Sunak. It's coming amidst a wider sense in the country that the Conservatives are in disarray. We've got 40 Conservatives standing down at the next election. This is a seismic number for the Conservative Party, and it all adds to a sense that people are now really concluding that this party is heading for defeat and it's time to do something different.
How much do you think Ben Wallace is reacting like this because he's disappointed about not becoming the next Secretary-General of NATO? We all got a sense, didn't we, that that's the job he really did have his eye on next?
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it. The announcement came quite recently, although if in one of the newspapers today, apparently he told Rishi Sunak he was leaving in early June, perhaps as some of that news around his NATO hopes being dashed had come to him. So there's certainly some disillusionment there. Don't forget, of course, he's our longest serving defence minister since the Second World War. I mean, he's also been in frontline politics for a very long time. So it's likely that, it might not be NATO, but I suspect we will soon see Ben Wallace in some other big public-facing role. The question for Rishi Sunak this morning is, what is he going to do at the reshuffle in September? He's going to have to shake up his top team. It's going to be a critical reshuffle ahead of that election next year. The Conservatives are going the wrong way in the polls again. They're declining quite significantly in recent days and weeks. Labour are back to having a 20-point lead. So again, it's not a great day for Rishi Sunak. He's got a lot of challenges coming up this autumn.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it makes him look weak, doesn't it? I mean, you can imagine that's not the intention of Ben Wallace. He's got his own reasons and people want to move on and have a change and all the rest of it. But it does make the PM look weak.
I think that's certainly true. It also makes the government look divided and a little bit lost. It also, of course, raises some big implications for Ukraine. I mean, Ben Wallace was a real loyalist. He was utterly committed to the mission. Some said he perhaps committed a bit of a gaffe recently when he said that, or implied that Ukraine should be more grateful for the support it's receiving. That didn't go down particularly well among the Ukrainians, but nonetheless, it was Ben Wallace and Boris Johnson who led the UK's response to Ukraine, which won widespread applause around the world. So what will a new defence minister do with this relationship? Where will he or she take the country going forward? And of course, if you read Ben Wallace's piece today, the other thing he mentions, which I think is significant, is he said, look, we may well be in a very difficult position very soon with China in the South China Sea, with Putin being increasingly unpredictable, with terrorist groups in Africa, ISIS, Al-Qaeda resurgent. And he's saying, look, whoever takes on the big job after me is going to have to get their arms around some very big and growing threats to the UK. So he's left with quite a bang.
He certainly has. And as you just alluded to, big pair of boots to fill at a really crucial time. Who do you think could be lined up to be the next defence minister?
So I'm not entirely sure, but the one thing I was wondering last night is this the moment that Rishi Sunak is going to do a bigger clear out? Is this reshuffle coming in September the moment where he's going to suddenly promote a lot of unexpected people into the cabinet? Is it the time where he's going to say, actually, look, if I've got any chance at the election next year with people like Ben Wallace and others leaving, maybe it's time to bring forward some younger, fresh talent from the backbenches, try and sort of bring some people forward that might make the voters out there say, oh, this Conservative Party looks a little bit different from the one during the Boris Johnson and very brief Liz Truss era and the early part of Rishi Sunak's premiership. I wouldn't want to pick a particular name, Ellie, but I would say, just keep your eyes on the younger people around the Conservative Party in Parliament, because I think if Rishi Sunak's bold, he'll start to push them forward very quickly.
Oh, well. Oh, that could be interesting to watch. Matt, thanks very much indeed. Good to see you, as always.
I'm really interested by that now, this reshuffle. Especially defence. You'd think Johnny Mercer, wouldn't you? Or Tom Tugendhat.
One of the two.
You would, but potentially Junior.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. It'd be interesting. Would a fresh-faced cabinet win you over? Is that what we need now, or would you rather see people who've got a bit more experience in the job? I think a bit stale now. It's a tough call, actually, but interesting to see. And we were talking about, of course, the war in Ukraine, which is obviously going to be a very big role for whoever takes over as Defence Secretary, but it has, of course, contributed to huge problems over here, the fastest rise in the cost of basic goods in about 50 years. Now, a few months ago, the price of 4 pints of milk reached a record £1.65.
But supplies are now easing, with prices coming down as supermarkets compete for customers. Well, despite that, the dairy company Arla says milk prices are unlikely to be slashed any further.
Well, let's talk to dairy farmer Steve Evans, who joins us now. Steve, it's really good to see you this morning. I'm from a farming community myself, and what always worries me about this sort of thing is that whatever we pay for milk, it's people like you who seem to get the very, very thin end of the wedge.
Yeah, very much so. In the last 4 months, we've had a 20-25% cut in our milk prices paid to us. Unfortunately, our cost of production hasn't fallen 20 to 25%. It's a significant issue. I mean, there's a number of things that have gone on this spring. We've had what was a cold, wet start to the year, followed by a very dry period. So, milk volumes are falling. Ash is right to say that milk prices won't fall any further. We've had a confirmation that our August milk price will hold, thankfully, because it was serious. It's really, really serious. There always used to be the case of use us or lose us, but unfortunately, when you've got retailers that are playing it pretty fast and loose with the supply chain, and it's not just dairy. I mean, you look at all sectors. I've seen it this week. There are products in this country that are in season currently, yet they've been imported from overseas. So, just using dairy as the example, it is such a fine line between profit and loss. And when a retailer uses dairy and the other staples like potatoes, bread, things like that as a loss leader to get consumers through the door, then there's a significant problem.
I mean, Steve, you touched there on additional costs, and there have been so many, especially since the outbreak of war in Ukraine. I mean, just feed, fertiliser, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
There must be a number of farmers actually leaving the industry.
Oh, it's phenomenal, the amount that are leaving the industry. I mean, you only have to look at our local auctioneers. I think on the last count, which we were talking about on Thursday, funnily enough, here on the farm, there was 9 locally that were to leave the industry in the next 6 to 8 weeks. That's a hell of a lot. That's huge numbers. That's numbers we've never seen before. So it's the confidence has gone. Farmers are fed up of being used and abused, because it would be quite easy for the retailer to actually say, do you know what, we're in this together here, but and sort of keep not the milk price to the consumer high, because at the end of the day, the consumer price, or the price that the consumer's paying in the supermarket, isn't a huge amount different to what they were paying 4 months ago. Yet, percentage-wise, we've incurred all of the risk on this, you know, and are suffering the consequence of the retailer just trying to draw people through the door. You know, their whole business model doesn't work without people coming through the door. Just like our business model doesn't work if we are not having, you know, a milk price that is above the cost of production. I mean, simply put, we're quite focused on our cost of production. We monitor it weekly. Okay, because it's that volatile. Yeah, this last week, the week before, you know, we're getting 2 to 3 pence per litre less than the cost of production. Well, you tally that up over a 12-month period, the losses are incredible.
See, this is what I don't understand with all of this. You can understand how supermarkets, you know, the main retailers say, right, we need to bring the costs down, we need to bring people through the doors, you know, it's a staple, all these sort of things. But that's no good if they're not taking that loss out of their own pockets and just taking it out of yours, when you've got obviously in essence a limited market to sell to. I mean, what's happened to the idea of food security in this country? This is literally going to put you out of business.
Food security policy. There's huge issues within policy around rural affairs, around food security in particular, and it has to change from the top down. I mean, many years ago, we had the Milk Marketing Board in this country, which did an outstanding job of marketing dairy products. Unfortunately, that was disbanded because it was deemed too powerful. Well, ultimately, the moment that was disbanded, the power shifted from the producer to the retailer. Well, that is a complete disaster. Always has been. Everybody said it. Even economists at the highest level have said that should never ever have happened. You know, it's so frustrating. I mean, the milk we produce on this farm goes 5 miles down the road to a factory where it's turned into a lovely, mature and extra mature cheese that's sold through a number of well-known retailers. It's so volatile. I can't begin to describe it, because it's if I walked into the Dragon's Den, okay, for example, and said, right, I've got this business model. It's the best idea ever. Every single person on the planet will need it. And they all turned and said, right, okay, brilliant, fantastic, what is it? And I said, agriculture. They'd laugh you out the doorway, because it is agriculture is something that everybody needs, no matter what your diet orientation is. Every single person on the planet needs a farmer. Yet, as a business, it's wow. It's so volatile. It's unreal, and people don't appreciate how volatile it is, and how you know, like I said, we've got 9 sort of sales coming up now locally, and it's worrying times indeed. Worrying times for not just us, but for you guys, the consumer too, because it might not be around in a few years' time.
Well, something needs to be done to really get a handle on this, I think, and protect our farms. Yep. We need to do something about that. Steve, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much. Have you got a daisy? Of all the dairy farmers I know, everyone's had a daisy at some point. Have you got a daisy on the farm?
We haven't got a daisy, but we've got a Wendy.
You've got a Wendy?
Oh, Wendy.
That'll do nicely. Give Wendy a stroke from me. Good to see you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
I love cows and bullocks and all that. You've got to be careful. Bullocks.
What's that?
It's a male cow.
Oh, right. Oh, you're very across the terms.
Without, that's been seen to.
Yeah.
And they go off for beef. Bullocks go off for beef. But honestly, they're such tender, beautiful animals.
Oh.
But you've got to be careful, because obviously they're huge.
They are, yeah. I like cows as well.
There you go. Anyway, look, this is GB News, Britain's news channel. Got lots more coming up for you.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vaughtry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible though as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 7:29. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And today is the Wimbledon men's final, with defending champion Novak Djokovic facing the sensational Carlos Alcaraz, only 20 years old.
Sensational. What is it between them? 16 years?
Well, that I don't know.
Yes, I think so. So
You're
there you
getting
go.
involved over there.
So it's impressive stuff.
Very impressive. Well, our national reporter Paul Hawkins joins us now live from Wimbledon. And Paul, just before we get into today's action, let's have a look back, shall we? Yesterday and the women's final, because there are emotional scenes, weren't there, on centre court?
Yeah, emotional scenes, but at two contrasting ends of the spectrum. You had Vondrousova, who was the underdog in that match, really emotional at the end, and kind of tears of joy, running up, doing the traditional climbing up to hug her family. Her sister was there to watch her. Her husband had flown over specially. It's their first anniversary today. Just in, a real outpouring of emotion from someone who'd only won 4 matches on grass before Wimbledon, who injured her wrist twice, who only returned to tennis last year. In fact, last year she was shopping in London and at Wimbledon as a tourist. This year she's won it. Contrast that with Ons Jabeur, who was in absolute tears, calling it the toughest loss of her career. And she was trying to be consoled by the Princess of Wales at the end. You kind of remembered Jana Novotná when she was crying on the shoulder of the Duchess of Kent, Andy Murray from 11 years ago. And afterwards, Ons Jabeur was asked about that. She said she didn't know if the Princess of Wales said if she wants to give me a hug or not. I told the Princess of Wales hugs are always welcome. So she's lost this year's final, last year's final. She also lost the US Open final as well. Difficult for her, but she's only 28 years young, and look at Novak Djokovic, only 36. It's not over for her yet.
Oh, that's tough for her, though, isn't it? Bless her, having 2 losses at Wimbledon. I think she probably needed that hug from the Princess of Wales. And what have we got to look forward to today, Paul, at the men's final?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Stephen just mentioned it there, the difference in age. In fact, I went back and looked at Novak Djokovic's first Grand Slam title in 2008 when Carlos Alcaraz was 5. He'd only picked up a tennis racket the year before. It's going to be really interesting. He's the current men's world #1, and in fact the youngest man to reach the top of the men's rankings. He does have 1 Grand Slam under his belt. He won the US Open last year. He then missed the Australian Open because he was injured. Then in the French Open, he met Novak Djokovic in the semi-final. During that match, after 2 sets, he got cramping. Novak Djokovic went on to beat him by 3 sets to 1. He said he got cramping because of the stress of facing Novak Djokovic, who, let's be honest, he's 36, but by his own measure, after his semi-final win at Wimbledon this year, he said that 36 is the new 26, and a lot of people are thinking he's playing some of the best tennis of his life. The stats, by the way, are incredible if we look at them. 5th successive Wimbledon title. If he wins today, that would match Bjorn Borg and Roger Federer. 8th overall Wimbledon men's title. The 24th Grand Slam title. If he wins today, that would equal Margaret Court's record. He hasn't been beaten at Wimbledon in a completed match since 2016, and no one has beaten him on centre court for 10 years. So you would make him the favourite, but don't write off Carlos Alcaraz. A lot of people think that he could win Wimbledon this year. He will certainly win Wimbledon at some point, probably multiple points of his career, given the way he started.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Catch with you a little bit later on. Let's find out what else is happening in the world of sport. Aidan McGee is here. Good morning.
Morning. Good to see you both.
What have you got for us?
Lionel Messi. Remember him winning the World Cup with Argentina spectacularly back in December in Qatar. He's an ambassador for Visit Saudi as well. Well, he's turned up at Miami yesterday. We flew into Miami officially. We knew it was going to happen. He's linking up with David Beckham, of course, on a deal that runs until 2025. 36 years old, 7-time Ballon d'Or winner, 4 Champions League winners.
He is 36.
He is. He's been around. Well, he started in. I mean, I first remember seeing him back in 2006. We can see a picture of him just there. It just flashed up on our screen of him yesterday. He was walking around the supermarket unchallenged yesterday. Nobody seemed to know who he was.
Someone did. They took a picture.
Yeah, true. But he wasn't mobbed. He wasn't mobbed, and I can't imagine Lionel Messi's done that too many times in his life, being able to go to the supermarket and not be mobbed. And America's the sort of place where that would happen. But I think they'll get to know him pretty soon once he gets his feet under the table. He's going to be earning £60 million or $60 million roughly a season. Football-wise, I'm not sure where it really kind of fits in. I mean, you know, as I say, it's a 5-year deal, so that could take him to 41. I mean, he's not the sort of player who's been pace-reliant in recent years. I mean, we didn't see much of that sort of pace in Qatar. We saw the sort of short bursts. So where this takes football in America or soccer in America is a different thing altogether. But
they don't really care about it, do they?
It's been a very... Look, they've had several chances. I mean, we think about it, 16 years since Beckham went there with LA Galaxy. That wasn't the first attempt of getting soccer, as they know it, as call it over there, off the ground. We saw the North Atlantic Soccer League back in the 80s when Franz Beckenbauer and Pelé went there to try and lift it off the ground. But they're trying to do it in a sort of piecemeal fashion. I think Beckham believes they can do it this time. I mean, as I say, it's a big coup because he could have earned more money going to Saudi. He always has the links with Qatar and Saudi as well. But he chose the States. As I say, though, it doesn't bode well in some ways, though, that he wasn't recognised in the street yesterday.
Yeah.
What impact will that have on UK football and European football? I mean, all these great players going to the Middle East and the States.
Well, I think it's actually a shame. It's a good point there because I think that it's a shame, given that this is somebody who won the World Cup, 7 months ago, and I think he's got so much more to offer European football. He did have tax issues in Spain, didn't he, a few years ago? It's not been the happiest time for him, the 2 years he spent in Paris with PSG. I'm not convinced he ever really wanted to go. He was hounded out to some degree as well. The fans weren't really happy with the contribution he was making. A lot of people felt he was there just for the money. However, I still think he could be contributing to a top European side. I think it's a shame in some ways that he's going there. However, some would say, well, you know, he did give up the chance to earn the big money elsewhere, and he's gone to the US to see if he can try and lift football there. And if he could do that, what a great legacy it would be.
Should we talk Man United?
We should, yeah. I mean, look, they've seen Declan Rice go to Arsenal yesterday. That was announced as we saw the takeover. I mean, look, this club we're talking about the World Cup, this club was put up for sale. The biggest club in the world was put up for sale back in November, and there's still the same 2 bidders are vying to try and take it. And there's no sign of an end. A month from now, the Premier League season kicks off. United kick off against Wolves. And we don't know who's going to own the club. The goalkeeper's not been sorted out. David De Gea left last week. He said goodbye to his £375,000 a week contract. They've not signed a replacement. Dean Henderson, who was in goal for Nottingham Forest last season, could step in there. They've got their US tour coming up, and it's a thing like, you know, do you sign these big players knowing that you're going to sell the club in a few weeks' time? However, if you don't sign the players, do you devalue the club? It's a difficult situation. They've got some deadwood to get rid of as well. Harry Maguire is now their 5th choice centre back. Difficult. He's had a wretched couple of years with Manchester United. It's a move that hasn't really worked out for him. But the Glazers are saying they want to be on this US tour. So do they actually want to sell this club? If they're going to be front and centre, are they there to try and? I mean, they're not. Some would say that they're constant. You know, just wanting to be around United all the time says that they're serious about it. Sometimes they're saying that they're, you know, maybe it's devaluing the club. Because they're not popular, that's the thing.
Well, no, they're not.
They haven't been for a long time.
You just need to get it sorted out, don't they?
They do.
How difficult can it be?
They've created a bidding war, but that's been going on for 8 months now.
There's only 2 of them. It can't be that hard.
There's not many people who've got the kind of money it takes to buy Man United anyway. It's going to cost them £6-7 billion.
True.
Ouch. Aidan, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. Here's one for you.
Oh, yeah.
Princess of Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Candice Holdsworth, who's got no taste at all, said she looked... what's she called? Dull?
Dowdy.
Dowdy, which is a shame because you've got the same outfit.
Yeah, I wore it best, yeah.
But Yvonne says the princess looks the epitome of elegance.
No.
An ideal choice for a sporting event.
Wow. I
Stuff
thought
that
that
in your
too.
pipe, Candice, and smoke it. Well, she might.
I thought the same, Yvonne. That's why I wore it to Ascot.
She's halfway home by now.
She is. We're not letting her back in the studio.
No, but Tom Slater will be back with all the newspapers in just a few minutes. This is GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. And action.
Read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 7:42. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And it's time to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning is editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, and writer Candice Holdsworth. Very good to see you both this morning.
Morning.
And Tom, should we start with The Observer? The front page, Keir Starmer telling the party we can't spend our way back to power.
Yes, so another quite uninspiring intervention, I think it's fair to say, from Keir Starmer. It's really part of his kind of steady-as-she-goes strategy. So recently we've seen Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, announce that she's basically going to stick within, broadly speaking, kind of Jeremy Hunt's spending plans, because, of course, everything's going great at the moment. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we've also got Starmer here telling, particularly the left of his party, very explicitly in this particular intervention, that the economic situation is such that we can't get too ahead of ourselves. Now, of course, we are in quite difficult economic circumstances, there's no doubt about that. But I think this can't help but feed that sense that people within the Labour Party, as well as outside of it, have, that there's no real vision here. It's all just kind of talk about administering harsh medicine,
This is what I don't understand, because when we were in times of austerity, in 2010 onwards, it was the Labour Party saying we need to spend our way out of austerity rather than cut. And now they're saying we're in effect in a sort of austerity time, and now they're saying, oh no, we can't spend.
I mean, I think he's just trying to...
Just sort of what the Labour Party stands for.
Well, that's the key question. I mean, even where Keir Starmer is concerned, anything... He's now in a situation where he's been U-turning on policies that have already been announced. And the thing is, it adds to that image of the electorate of what do you actually stand for. If we're going to have an actual kind of economic argument, that should involve positions sincerely held being put as firmly to the public as possible. And yet it feels like we're back into that situation that we were at in, certainly for most of the 2000s, 1990s, where it felt like the main parties were just dancing on a head of a pin. I really don't think that's good for democratic debate. I really don't think that's good for coming up with any genuinely radical or different solutions to the situation that we find ourselves in. It does feel like both parties are committed to just trundling on and hoping that things get better. And whilst, given the fact that the Tory party is completely imploded, Keir Starmer does feel like he can walk it to victory at the next election. I don't think it leaves our politics in a particularly good position when you just have a situation where we're back to parties just offering kind of competing flavours of blancmange. I think it makes people switch off from politics, really.
Yeah.
And it does feel like we're getting back into that stage.
I know, it's like this is what he's saying now. What will he say next? I mean, he's backtracked on some pretty major things. I mean, they got rid of that flagship Green New Deal policy.
Yeah.
And apparently it was reported that he said, I hate tree huggers.
Yeah.
Which was like, what? Like, no, that's not what we associate with you at all. Why are you saying things like that? He's creating such a confusing image for himself. And I just wonder if he knows that actually if he just stuck by what he believed in, people would have more respect for him than constantly flip-flopping like this. Who is he appealing to? And no one trusts what he says now.
I don't think he does believe in anything, though. And I don't mean that just as a kind of catty comment. I mean, he came into politics quite late. He did as a kind of young person have a history in sort of more far-left politics, but, you know, that's not unusual for people of a certain age, going through university and so on. But given the fact that he won the leadership saying, I'm basically going to be Jeremy Corbyn, but who can do his tie up straight and sing the national anthem, through to junking all of those policies, to having this flirtation with green politics, saying we're going to be investing 28 billion a year and then backing down. I don't think he stands for anything other than trying to win power, and that's only going to, you know, help you for so long. As I say, if it wasn't for what a terrible state the Tory party in, I think people would be wondering what the hell's going on with the Labour Party. But, you know, you can't argue with double-digit poll leads.
No.
Yeah. Although, apparently on the doorstep, they have heard people say, we're not happy with the way the Conservatives are at the moment, but we're not sure about Keir Starmer. So the Conservative MPs were feeling really down. But since they've been campaigning, they're actually feeling a bit more hopeful. But they've still got to offer something. They've still got to have a proper alternative.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Let's have a look at the Daily Star Sunday, should we? MI6, we think of Bond and all these exciting stories. They want a computer nerd.
Yes, yes. Well, this is in the Star. They're saying that they're looking for someone to combat these new AI threats. So they're looking for someone whose specialism is in computer science, artificial intelligence, and it conflicts with the image we have of James Bond as being this sort of romantic figure. But to me, it wasn't that surprising because a few people I know actually did end up going into MI6 and MI5.
Really?
Did physics and mathematics. They like those sorts of people because so much of what we do now is big data analysis and having to just look at lots of different information sources and sort through them. So I think they've been doing this for quite a while now. It's not new.
No, but it's quite nice. The rise of the geeks, eh, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
See, I like a bit of that.
Inheriting the earth and all that stuff. But we hear constantly that so much of their work nowadays is all just to do with cyber attacks and with things kind of, you know, behind a computer. So it does show you how these different threats are evolving.
Yeah.
Yes. To the benefit of the nerds.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Tom, let's have a look at the time, shall we? About ticket offices shutting down, and therefore so does human interaction.
Yeah, so it's a kind of right around of... Obviously, we've been talking over the course of the past week of these 1,000 ticket offices closing, some even in some of the big central London hubs just closing completely for good, concerns about the impact of that. But this story is kind of putting it in the context of how across society now, whether it's kind of self-checkouts at supermarkets or the fact that when you try and contact your energy supplier, you're more likely to... Your first stage is some sort of AI chatbot before you actually fight to talk to a human being. Even, I saw pointed out the other day, the number of call centres which used to exist have been replaced by those kind of slightly creepy robotic sentence formation robots which will try and address you, and just how, first of all, as we all know, this is a real problem for people who are elderly, disabled, people who even a kind of self-checkout is actually a pretty big obstacle to going about your business rather than any of these other new things. But also just how those kind of moments of humour interaction have been kind of got rid of for technologies which aren't as good as a human anyway. It'd be one thing if they were so... Yeah. I always think about that when you go to the supermarket, those self-checkouts. You still have to have that person there who has to, like, make up for the fact that this machine is basically not actually works that well to help you navigate it.
I just wonder if this is... I mean, in terms of... You get more human interaction on the self-checkouts. I know. Because you have to go, oh, it's not gone through. So you get... Rather than... If you go to the tills, all you get is... Do you need a bag?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is it. Have you got a nectar card?
Yeah. It's a bonding experience, isn't it? The self-checkout.
You go to the self-checkout.
I do. Do you? Yeah. You literally, you get more, you see more of the people. And the minute you want to buy, even if you want to buy an alcohol-free beer, you've still got to get it age-approved.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy.
That is crackers.
Never mind buying a can of Red Bull. The alarm bells go off.
It's like you also can't buy teaspoons, do you know that, without being age verified?
What is that? Well, they're just classified as the same thing as knives or whatever.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can't buy teaspoons because it was a very hot day. I was trying to buy Ben & Jerry's and a packet of teaspoons. Can't do it without your ID. There you go, learnt something today.
What has the world come to?
What is the world come to, Tom Slater?
The trouble is, I always say that when if it's alcohol or anything, and they just go, I say, well, you could have asked if I was over 18.
Yeah, it's a huge compliment.
And they all look at, yes, some old bloke with that joke again. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, I quite like being ID'd, to be fair.
It's great.
Candice, should we look at Barbie in the Times?
Yeah, so this is an interesting opinion piece in the Times. It's Hadley Freeman, the writer, and she's talking about the new Barbie film. And I've been surprised, actually, at the reaction that the film's had. A lot of people have been quite divided about it and have said it brings up feminist issues about body image and is there something trivial and superficial. But I honestly didn't think that the film would be that because it's directed by Greta Gerwig, who is such a substantial film director. I mean, she did Little Women, which is one of my favourite films.
Me too.
So I know it's probably going to be a really interesting, quirky take on Barbie. And I just wonder, though, if they've maybe marketed it in a more mainstream way because they want to bring in audiences, so people aren't quite getting that this could be a really interesting, really good film.
Yeah, I've heard it's Barbie but immersed in the real world.
Yes.
It's going to be like a dark Barbie.
Yes.
Adult Barbie.
There we go.
Would you watch it, Tom?
No, I'm keen. I'm curious as to how it's going to turn out. For the reason that you say, because of the fact that she has this kind of almost more artistic cinema kind of pedigree, and yet she's been given this big mainstream toy adaptation. I'm quite interested to see what it will pan out as.
It's intriguing. It's just all the PR around it has made it very fascinating. Let's have a look at the Telegraph, Tom. Gendered pronouns. So the Arts Council is going to stop using he, she. No, I'm sympathetic to some of this, right? And I know a lot of our viewers and listeners aren't. I think we need to be a little bit more tolerant. But no wonder people get rubbed up the wrong way when this sort of thing happens.
I think so, because also it feels at best like a colossal waste of time. I refuse to believe that any trans person has been knocking at the door of the Arts Council Wales and saying, please, could you remove those he, she pronouns from your documentation? It's something that they're doing to placate the offence of someone who probably doesn't even exist. And it's that sort of thing where you think this is a complete waste of time. It's also in many cases, I'm sure, because they want to just replace he and she with they and them in all circumstances. That's going to create some very strange, ungrammatical sentences. It's not something that you can easily, straightforwardly do. And as I say...
actually, I don't know that you should blame trans people in the sense that if, you know, a trans woman wants to be called she, and a trans man wants to be called he. There's a very small number of people in the middle who say I'm gender neutral.
I'm plural and all that. Yeah, it's a very small amount of people. And as you say, going back to I was just saying at the beginning, I refuse to believe this is at the behest of anyone, really. These are these organisations which are convinced that they have to engage in this kind of thing. They feel like it's virtue signalling. They feel like it's going to make them look dead progressive and so on. And I think it just alienates a lot of people who think, why are you doing things like this, especially when you know, all kinds of public institutions are hardly in rude health at the moment. So to be engaging in this kind of thing, as you say, it just rubs people up the wrong way, even if it feels relatively trivial in the grand scheme of things.
I agree. I think, you know, for a lot of trans people, they're just going about their lives quietly, and most people that they know personally will use the pronouns that they prefer, because it's actually, you know, you probably feel quite rude calling someone he if they didn't want to be called he. I think a lot of this is activism, and I think it's the activism which polarises people, because it's very black and white, and it doesn't operate in those nuances and just those spaces of human decency and kindness that most of us are in. It's very political, it's very black and white.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Yeah.
We'll leave the last one, because we haven't got time to do it justice. You can bring it back in the next hour if you are. But Candice, Tom, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Talking about what you can do on a Sunday, because if you want to mow the lawn in 6.5 minutes, is it too early at 8 o'clock in the morning? Natasha says, does anyone know what time I can hoover on a weekday? I'm asking as my neighbour has made a formal complaint to my housing association for hoovering at 8:30 a.m. on a weekday.
Interesting.
He said that. I wouldn't have thought on a week. He said, I would find it a little bit irritating if I was your neighbour, but I wouldn't complain about it.
No, I wouldn't complain about it. Isn't the rule for, like, building work and stuff 8 a.m. on a weekday?
Like that.
I believe it's something like that.
But then again,
housework would be in the same category.
To not have a go, Natasha, I find the sound of a vacuum cleaner immensely irritating. And that's because my mother did it.
All the
every day. Oh, just whip round with a hoover. It's just lift up your feet. When you're a kid and you're watching the telly, it's lift up your feet and all that sort of thing. It used to drive me crackers.
It's haunted you, hasn't it?
It has haunted me ever since.
Well, do stick with us. This is Breakfast on GB News.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible, though, as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Working with this woman is a liability, let me just say.
That's all your fault, actually.
It is my fault, but
Yep.
you know, you encouraged me. It's 8 o'clock. Good morning, Sunday the 16th of July. Today, another top Tory quits. The Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, is leaving government at the next cabinet reshuffle, probably September, and he's not going to stand again as an MP.
Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off on the UK's CPTPP membership. Quite a mouthful. That's the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Well, it rolls off the tongue. But how will this mouthful benefit our economy?
It's men's singles final day at Wimbledon. Could it be a piece of history for 20-year-old Alcaraz?
And is it going to be another blustery day on the weather front?
Low pressure remains in control as we move into the second half of the weekend. Join me for the full weather forecast later to find out all the details.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello. And this is Breakfast on GB News.
We're not here to have fun. Behave yourself.
Yeah.
Terrible.
You make it really hard to read.
I'm sorry.
Oh, do you know what? It says you shouldn't work with, what is it? You shouldn't work with...
Children or animals.
Children and animals. It's like Stephen Dixon should be on that list. Honestly, I can't. It's so good.
Go
so
good,
bad.
is it? It's a nightmare. Anywhere else would have been fired.
Oh dear. Anyway, we have fun, and that's the important thing.
Oh,
right?
we
Isn't
do
that what
have
you want
fun.
at the weekend?
Well, hopefully we've given you a bit of a smile in the morning. But
hopefully.
Honestly, mind you, maybe you're sat there having a glass of wine right now, and who could blame you, frankly?
Yeah.
Like stew. Evening stew, I have to say, because I'm having another glass of wine, he says, whilst enjoying breakfast again. The reason for that is in Christchurch, New Zealand.
That must be very odd, I think, watching breakfast telly in the evening with a glass of wine.
I did a live once into an Australian breakfast show when I was out doing some reporting, and it was very odd because it was 10:30 at night.
Really?
And it was, yeah, and they're live into their
And they were
breakfast
really
show.
chirpy, and you were like, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm winding down.
I was just about to go to bed. It's very odd.
Oh, right. Well, Sean, you haven't said where you are, so please let us know. But you're melting, apparently. It's already 30 degrees, and it's only 8:30. The curtains are shut with the air conditioning on.
So presumably somewhere in southern Europe.
We're going to, hazard a guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not here in the UK.
Certainly not here, is it? Yeah.
No, and it's this very odd weather system, and it is actually absolutely concerning now. I know loads of people get in touch and say, why do people fuss about, they're used to these temperatures, and they're not used to stuff like this because they're all struggling. And I tell you what, I'm on a rant now.
No, you're not.
But when you go on holiday, if you go to Spain or something and it's 25 degrees, it's a different 25 degrees to how it is over here. It's like drier and more intense. Well, the sun's more directly on you, so it's a different sort of heat.
I don't think it's as bad in those countries. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe it's because you're expecting it or you're dressed better. I think heat in this country is so much worse. And when we had that 40-degree day or two last summer, it was dreadful. But I think that's in part because our houses aren't designed for it. We retain heat, don't we? Our buildings. Maybe that's part of it. Also, lots of you getting in touch on Ben Wallace standing down. We're talking about who potentially might replace him as Defence Secretary. Have you got these?
No, I haven't.
Penny Mordaunt's coming up. Her name.
Yes, I have seen that one.
I haven't thought about her.
Well, she has been Defence Secretary before.
She'd be good. She did very well at the King's coronation. I'm just very impressed by her sword welding. Remember
Welding?
That? Welding? Wielding?
Wielding.
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 Thanks.
She's a welder as well. She's a woman of many talents.
I wouldn't put it past her.
But no, she has been Defence Secretary before, but only for about 2 months, which...
Maybe she should have another bash
I was trying to think exactly what... was it under Theresa May? I can't quite remember now.
Oh, right.
Here we go.
Well, Liz says, what about Penny Mordaunt?
1st of May 2019 to July 2019.
Was it under Theresa May?
So that would be when Boris Johnson took over.
Oh, very good.
And then got rid of her.
Well done.
So I don't know.
Yeah, Paula says, Penny Mordaunt for Defence Sec. We need a safe pair of hands, not somebody who's trying to prove themselves.
And Eileen says Ben Wallace should have been given the NATO job, Secretary-General, instead of potentially, and it looks like it could well be the case, your friend and mine, Ursula von der Leyen, who, of course, was one of the many presidents of the EU. Well, still is. I can't remember which president she is now because they have so many of them. But she... I mean, she's been a thorn in our side during the whole Brexit negotiations. Now she could be Secretary-General of NATO. She doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence.
But that's really interesting what Eileen says about the fact that Ben Wallace actually served in wars.
Well, he has, yeah.
And do you think that's something that a Defence Secretary should have done?
No.
Perhaps a Johnny Mercer?
No.
No?
I don't think... Well, Tom Tugendhat served as well, didn't he? And Penny Mordaunt's a reservist, I think, for the Navy. I don't think it's a criteria that has to be met, no. But I do think it does give you clearly an insight. Depends whether they're officers. I bet Ben Wallace was an officer.
Yeah, I think he was.
You almost need an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, the grunts, as they call themselves, who, then works their way into politics. Someone who actually knows what it's like, for the lads and lasses.
Yeah, you'd think that would be a benefit, wouldn't you? Well, of course, the reason we're talking about this is because Ben Wallace is to step down as Defence Secretary after 4 years at the helm.
Yeah, in 4 years he served under 3 Prime Ministers, but he has overseen Britain's withdrawal from Afghanistan and, of course, our role in the largest conflict in Europe since the Second World War.
But it does represent yet another Conservative MP abandoning ship and essentially abandoning the party, really. Let's speak to our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Good morning to you, Tom. Now, does this come as a surprise? Because Ben Wallace is a solid figure, isn't he? He's seen by many in the Tory party as the grown-up in the room.
He certainly is, and he's a very popular figure within the Conservative Party as well. Month on month on month, he comes near the top or at the top of those Conservative home rankings of cabinet ministers. Indeed, he was seen by some as a potential future leader of the Conservative Party, although for the last few months there have been rumours that Ben Wallace was thinking that this is time to move on, particularly around this bid to become the next next Secretary-General of NATO. The UK was really pushing Ben Wallace and his candidacy for that, although that seemed to have been slapped down, not just by the Americans, but also by those who think that the role should go to a former head of state or to a woman. So Ben Wallace, not having that future NATO path open to him, clearly is thinking that other things should be on the horizon. It's also worth noting that his particular constituency has a majority of around 6,000 votes. That's something that is looking a little bit wobbly looking at the polls, so potentially Ben Wallace looking to find something else, but of course not standing down until that next election as an MP.
How damaging is this for Rishi Sunak? Because you can if he's got personal reasons for doing it, and it's not a comment on the state of the party or government at the moment. If you took that as a sort of rosy side of all of this, it's still nevertheless hugely damaging, isn't it, to the PM, and makes the government look just that little bit weaker.
I think that's undeniable. Ben Wallace, of course, was a close ally of Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. He served as Defence Secretary for 4 years. He's been a very visible face and a linchpin, really, of the United Kingdom's response to Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. And one clue as to why the government may well be thinking that this is not a good look this morning is that we've now seen an intervention in the last 5 or 6 minutes from the Home Secretary, no doubt trying to change the subject in all of this. The Home Secretary has extraordinarily, in a letter published online in the last couple of minutes, called on Sir Keir Starmer to sack 3 of his frontbenchers over their support for Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion. Now, a cynic might think that this is a government that this morning rather wants to change the subject.
Well, Tom, it does leave one big question this morning of who's going to fill his boots. They are big ones, and it is a crucial time, isn't it, for the Tory party. Who's the front runners, do you think? We've had the names Johnny Mercer, Tom Tugendhat and Penny Mordaunt thrown about around here. What's your view?
Yeah, really, really strong suggestions there. Of course, Penny Mordaunt has done the job before, but also Tom Tugendhat has recently been promoted to being Security Minister, attending Cabinet. That would be a natural step for him. And of course, Johnny Mercer, as Veterans Minister, is also in the fray there too. There's also, of course, people who are currently in the MOD. James Heappey is a Defence Minister. Perhaps his name is in there as well if they wanted to not create too many gaps to plug then in other ministerial jobs. But really, this is a decision that will not just be about the practicalities, it will also be a decision about the politics, about balancing different sides of the party, as reshuffles always are. I think it's notable, though, that Ben Wallace has chosen to not stand down until the next reshuffle, expected just before the party conferences take place. The fact that he is not standing down until then gives Rishi Sunak space to shuffle the pieces, to rumble up that jigsaw and make something that is again a balanced cabinet politically. Because after all, looking back at one of the mistakes that Liz Truss made in government, many commentators say that the fact that she picked only her allies and not that many people who disagreed with her in her cabinet, that led to an unbalanced cabinet. So Rishi Sunak will really be trying to get that ideological balance across the cabinet in the wake of Ben Wallace's departure.
Yeah, fair point. James Heappey is a good call, actually. He's actually a very solid man in his brief so far, so that'd be interesting. Good call, Tom, as always. What are you doing in Cardiff?
Also, Stephen, it's pronounced CPTPP. It's not that hard. It's
me who's struggling, Tom.
This is the. Oh, sorry, Annie. I just heard. As I was coming on, I heard laughing and breaking. It's actually Donald Trump's fault because America pulled out of what was then the TPP, much easier to pronounce, and so they had to rebrand it all and add comprehensive and progressive at the start of it, so it became the CPTPP. Anyway,
you young whippersnapper, cheeky devils, son, me lad. What a nerve! nerve.
We've been told off.
What a nerve.
We have. We've been told off. Sorry, Tom. I'll take the blame for that one. That's
CPTPP.
CPTPP.
I mean, honestly, the young, they think they know it all these days, ladies and gentlemen. You take no notice. What are you doing in Cardiff? Tell us that, Tom.
I'm in Cardiff not to talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but indeed to conduct the People's Panel for Camilla Tominey's show that's coming on just after breakfast, because we'll be talking to some denizens of this part of the world to get their views. These are GB News viewers, and we always, every week on Camilla Tominey's show, get the views of GB News viewers from different parts of the country. Today, it's Cardiff, the capital of Wales. What do the people of Cardiff think about all of these issues? No doubt Ben Wallace, no doubt a bit of CPTPP, and perhaps more besides.
Oh, you're showing off now, Tom.
No, but it's actually a real shame, Tom. It is a shame, because, you know, I thought you had a good career ahead of you. But frankly, you're finished here.
He's going to shadow ban you, Tom.
That's it, you're gone.
Well, enjoy Cardiff. I love Cardiff. You'll have lots of fun. Good to see you.
Honestly. Next time I see him in the flesh, he's in so much trouble.
He's cheeky, isn't he?
He's cheeky. CPTPP.
It's not that hard. CPTPP. See, I have to say it like that.
It's you, yeah.
It's me.
You're the one who struggled with that. Been fine.
Go on, then.
CPTPP.
Yeah, you're showing off as well.
I couldn't tell you what it stands for. Continental Breakfast Trans-Pacific.
But neither could I.
Something or other.
Anyway.
I don't know.
Keep your views coming in on that or any of the stories that we're talking about today. gbviews@gbnews.com.
And for once, I will say, if you want to say horrible things about Tom Harwood, do send your thoughts through. I'll be very happy to read them out.
Now, of course, we're talking about the CPTPP because the Business Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, has signed off on UK's membership to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership in New Zealand today.
Yes, as a major Indo-Pacific trade bloc, this deal could gain British business access to a market of 500 million people with fewer barriers.
Well, earlier we spoke to former advisor to the Bank of England and the Treasury, Dr Roger Gewolb, and we started by asking if the new trade deal will make a significant difference to us.
I don't think so. It's very nice to see some good news surrounding this government and something that really nobody can criticize. But yet there are critics. The pros and the cons. The pros are that this is one of the world's largest trade groups. But of course, we're already doing business with 99% of the members, and it's only going to increase Britain's gross domestic product by less than 1%. But it's nice to join this Asia-Pacific group because it strengthens our ties with the new security alliance with Australia and the United States. Helps us have allies in our defenses against China, etc. The critics on the other side are saying the government is gaslighting us as usual. This is not a replacement for the loss of the EU. It has as many members, but as I say, only 1% of GDP. And it's a bit having passed Brexit but not really delivered it. They are saying it's kind of like being told short people are attractive after you've just had your legs amputated.
I mean, many of the papers this morning are heralding it as a great victory for Brexit. I get the sense that you wouldn't quite agree with that statement.
Well, I think they're two different things. The thing that's lacking in the CPTPP is the United States that initially was going to join, but then went and set up its own Indo-Pacific group. Of course, they are not members of the EU, and that was the whole point of the EU. So how valid a criticism that is, I don't know. But I don't think it's a great victory other than in perhaps the security sense and the sense that Britain is pivoting towards the Asia-Pacific axis, which is where all the action is happening these days, which is a very good thing.
Yeah, well, I suppose it might play out better in the long term in that sense. Can I ask you, Roger, as we've got you, because we've had some really interesting chats over recent months about interest rates and inflation and all these sort of things. What do you make of... I mean, look, the PM's promised to halve inflation by the end of the year, stalled at the moment, 8.7%. What's driving that stalling, and what can be done, if anything, to get inflation down by the end of the year?
I don't think that is likely, Stephen. I think two questions, what can be done and what is driving it. Basically, what is driving it is the PM and the Bank of England continuing to raise interest rates. We don't have the kind of inflation that can be combated by raising interest rates as they do, for example, in the States. You raise interest rates to curb consumer spending. We all know we're not spending a lot here. We're cutting back.
A lot of you getting in touch saying, oh, he's talking a lot of sense there, including Jim Dale, who came on to talk about the weather after that, was even saying that. And there was somebody else who got in touch, and I can't just find it now because we've got so many...
Here,
oh, there you go. Where is it? Point to it. Oh, there it is, thank you. Lorraine says he was 100% right. What is Andrew Bailey doing at the Bank of England, making horrendous, unaccountable decisions? And again, Sharon says increasing interest rates is a blunt tool designed to reduce disposable income. It's supposed to squeeze family budgets to take the heat out of the economy and drive inflation down, but it only works when inflation is being driven by strong demand. Our current inflation is being driven by ongoing supply constraints. You lot are all experts on this, but you're right. You're right. So I do not understand why people aren't listening to what people like Roger have got to say. On this one, and why then are we all being punished by higher inflation, higher mortgages, and all the rest of it? And then higher rates if you want to get on the housing market, which isn't happening for people, so that's slowing down the housing market, which damages growth in the economy.
Yeah, the whole thing's a mess, isn't it? It really is. I'll tell you one set of people that are being pinched, it's farmers. We spoke to a dairy farmer a little bit earlier on in the programme who was talking about 9 farms in his locality are up for sale. Farmers literally cannot afford to keep going in this economy. Really, really difficult. Lots of you being in touch about that. Denise says, why don't you ever ask farmers how much subsidies they're getting from the government, which in turn is paid for by the public?
Well, that's a legitimate question. The subsidies aren't what they were, but now I know the big thing that they get subsidies for now is rewilding.
Yeah, a lot of encouragement to do that.
Which, of course, they don't want to do, because what does that do to our food security? Because then we're not producing as much.
Well, yeah. And Karen makes a really good point. He says, I wanted to say, I went into Asda to get some raspberries and all the punnets were from Portugal. I was incensed. What is going on? It's the height of the season for raspberries in this country. So perhaps that's an issue that we have, where we're not buying British. We're not...
Well, yeah, but
if it's available to us, why aren't we using it?
Yeah, we should be. Sue in Cheshire, I always bought my milk direct, or I've always bought my milk direct from the dairy, not from a supermarket. When I was a child in our 50s, milk was delivered to the door by the local farmer. But it used to be in... Oh, heck, this is way before your time. But, yeah, they turn up with the milk churns.
Really?
And dish it out. How much do you want? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And that was...
That's quite nice.
I mean, that was milk like... I mean, trouble is, you say, sorry, farmers, I drink skimmed nowadays, but that stuff, the fat on milk.
Slice it off, almost.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
No, but, I mean, actually, it tastes amazing.
I bet it does.
And that's where you can get your decent fat to make proper butter and all the rest of it, yeah.
Yum.
But that was the thing. But not pasteurised or anything, that's the thing.
That's it. Yeah, and you've got lots of people now who do the alternative milks, don't they? The oat and the soya and the almond and the coconut and all these alternatives.
Yeah, which is well...
People aren't buying dairy like they used to.
No, and if you're dairy intolerant, fine, but a lot of people are doing it because they just think it's healthier.
It's a bit fashionable, isn't it?
It's fashionable. It's also very sweetened at times, so it's not actually that healthy.
No.
You have to buy the unsweetened versions. We were talking in the paper with Steph earlier on about Angela Rippon, who it looks like is going to be on Strictly. At 78 years old.
Amazing.
She'll be the oldest ever contestant. Of course, she knows how to dance, does Angela. And we wanted an exclusive interview with Angela on the programme today, but she's just sent me an email saying she's still in her pyjamas.
I don't blame her.
And so she's not coming in.
8 a.m. on a Sunday. I don't blame you, Angela. Get your rest in before you start Strictly. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And I think she's. I think she could win it. You know.
Oh.
I'm gonna put it out there now.
Yeah, I think so. I'll be Team Angela.
Me
actually.
too. She's glam. She's gorge. She's got the moves. We know that.
Got the moves.
She's in great shape.
She will be determined to win.
Determined.
She's not a woman who messes about.
We should be her cheerleaders.
Cheerleaders. We should go along.
We should. I'm so glad we thought the same thing.
Yeah. No, that'd be nice.
Angela, if you're watching and you've switched us on, just to let you know, we are available and we can come and cheer you on the sidelines. I don't actually know you at all, but we can become firm friends. I've said hello to her.
I first worked with Angela 23, 24 years ago.
So you are firm friends.
So I've not... Well, yeah, but we had a lot of time in between where we didn't have any contact. But she's... you see her in the newsroom now and she comes and gives me a big hug.
Aww.
And you do think, there is a thing, I'm not a starstrucky type person, especially not when it's people you work with, but there are times you just think, blooming it's Angela Rippon. Because I'm very much of that Morecambe and Wise type era and all that sort of thing, which was just like, work with Morecambe and Wise, it was like, woohoo. So you do think, Angela Rippon, wow, Morecambe and Wise.
See, I didn't know any of that until our little briefing in the newsroom earlier, but now I feel like, it's got all these layers, hasn't it?
You've missed out on that Morecambe and Wise stuff. They need to get it back on telly, don't they? They need to start showing those out again on, I don't know, BBC Two probably. But I think most of them were BBC. Some were ITV, I think. Yeah. They'll still have all the rights to it. They need to get them back out, get them back on the box. Blooming brilliant, all that sort of stuff. Doesn't age.
Well, she could be on to a winner. There's going to be a winner at the singles final day at Wimbledon today. But could it be a piece of history for 20-year-old Alcaraz? We'll find out. This is Breakfast on GB News.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vaughtry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible though as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's coming up to 8:30. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie on your TV, your radio and online.
Now we said the right time.
Thank
it's all
you.
Very
I know.
good, isn't it? Well, today is the Wimbledon men's
Wasn't
final.
remotely patronising, that's fine.
That did make me laugh earlier, though, when it was 6:30 and you were proclaiming it was 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, no.
Very good, very good. But one thing is for sure is the Wimbledon men's final today. Thank you. I'm picking things up from you, you know. Segues. The defending champion Novak Djokovic is facing Carlos Alcaraz, just 20 years old, you know.
He is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Paul Hawkins joins us live from Wimbledon now. And Paul, before we look ahead to today's action on centre court, let's take a look back to yesterday, shall we, in the women's final. Really emotional scenes on centre court.
Yeah, especially Marketa Vondrasova, who didn't even think she was so unconfident about how she would perform at Wimbledon this year. Her husband stayed at home in the Czech Republic and was looking after the cat, but she beat 5 seeds on the way to the final, and her husband flew over. They found a cat sitter and he watched her win Wimbledon, which is pretty remarkable given last year she was here as a tourist and was shopping in London because she'd broken her wrist. So really emotional scenes. Her family were by the court, and afterwards, she's known for having loads of tattoos. She was asked would she get a new tattoo to kind of commemorate this incredible moment. She said yeah, and also my coach, because my coach said if you win a Grand Slam, then I'm going to get a tattoo too. So I think today they could be popping into a tattoo parlour in the Wimbledon area or somewhere in London. Meanwhile, Ons Jabeur, she was the favourite, frankly, and she, by her own admission, she said it was the toughest defeat of her career. She came into the match as the 6th seed, and really she started the match well, but after that, after going a set down, even though she went a set down in her semi-final and fought back, she just couldn't find the will, and you could see that she had the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was pretty tearful at the end, had to be consoled by the Princess of Wales. So yeah, really difficult for her. 3 Grand Slam finals now she's lost in, 2 at Wimbledon, 1 at the US Open, so really difficult for her.
Well, yeah, it's a tough one. Talk us through today then, Paul, because you've got the young upstart versus the older legend.
Yeah, that's right. Although after his semi-final victory, Novak Djokovic said 36 is the new 26, which gives us all hope, quite frankly. He's playing some of the best tennis of his life, incredibly, and the records will tumble if he wins. He hasn't been beaten at Wimbledon in a completed match since 2016. He hasn't lost on centre court since 2023. If he wins today, that'll be 5 successive men's titles. Only Bjorn Borg and Roger Federer have done that. That'll make it 8 Wimbledon titles, 24 Grand Slams overall, matching Margaret Court's record. So, and there's a string of other records that could be broken as well. He knows the grass courts here, he knows the centre court crowd, but watch out, because Carlos Alcaraz is widely tipped within the tennis world to be the next huge thing. He's the world #1 at the moment. He already has 1 Grand Slam under his belt. He won the US Open, missed it last year, missed the Australian Open because of injury. In the French Open, he came up against Novak Djokovic in the semi-finals, lost by 3 sets to 1. During that match, he got cramping because he said Novak Djokovic was stressing him out so much, but he says for this match, he's more mentally prepared. So his game is a kind of a combination of the best of Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. Really interesting. He doesn't just play from the back of the court. He likes to mix it up with the charge and chip, you know, the drop shots, the lobs, etc. So it'll be fascinating to watch him later. And if he were to win Wimbledon, as many think he will do, and some are saying it could be today, it would be remarkable given he's only 20 years old, and that Novak Djokovic won his first Grand Slam when Carlos Alcaraz was just 5 years old. He'd only picked up a tennis racket when he was 4.
Makes us feel extremely old. Paul, thanks very much indeed. Catch you later.
Thank you. That would be a great game, won't it? 2 p.m. today. Lots to look forward to, not only in tennis, but lots of other stories in the sporting world. That's why Aidan McGee joins us this morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Good. Messi, should we talk about him, please?
Yeah, I think he did something yesterday that he either has never done before in his life, or certainly hasn't done for a long time. He not only did he sign with Inter Miami, but David Beckham's franchise over in the Major League Soccer in the United States, but he also went to the supermarket and appeared to be unchallenged with his supermarket trolley.
I'd love to know what he's got in that trolley.
I know, yeah. I mean, it looks like you'd thought if he's playing at the age of 36, he's on quite a decent diet, I would have thought. But nobody seemed to know who he was. Now, you can take that 2 ways. You can think, well, as you said last hour, does anyone care about football or soccer, as they call it over there in the States? He'd go anywhere else in the world and he'd be mobbed. He won the World Cup 7 months ago. But in terms of what he's actually done, I mean, 7-time Ballon d'Or winner, we know all about his achievements on the pitch. I think it's a bit of a shame that we're not seeing him at an elite league. If you can win this, if you can win the World Cup 7 months ago, surely you can still contribute to a top club around Europe. I think it's a bit of a sad way to end his career. Although I think £60 million a season, I think will probably smooth things over. Having said that, he could have earned even more going to Saudi Arabia or even one of the other Middle East countries.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, they're absolutely raiding clubs like Liverpool, aren't they?
Without doubt. I mean, look, that's Liverpool, an enormous club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and I think they're finding it really hard to fend off Saudi influence. The difference this time, Stephen, we've seen. Even the US franchises, we've seen them take players who are maybe sort of more advanced in years. I mean, you know, Messi at 36, but now Saudi are different because they're starting to take players who are in their prime. And it's no wonder, because I look at Jordan Henderson at the moment. He's the Liverpool captain, 32 years old. Yeah, OK, probably past his peak. 200 grand a week he's on. He's now got the chance to go to El Ettifaq with Steven Gerrard, where he's just been appointed manager. And he's going to be on £750,000 a week.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Well, it is. I mean, but the reason he's mulling it over is because he's been a great ally of the LGBT plus community. He's England captain. He probably has to relinquish that as well because he would be playing a much, England's national rather. He'd be playing at a much lesser level, so I think that would probably be the end of his international career. Fabinho as well, another player who they've had a £40 million bid for. They're losing all their midfielders. They signed Alexis McAllister a month ago from Brighton, getting some business done nice and early, but they seem to be losing midfielders as well, and you can only imagine that manager Jurgen Klopp is really frustrated by this. On the face of it for Fabinho, I mean, they signed him for £43 million 5 years ago. To get a £40 million bid back to get him off the books, I guess it probably makes sense in some way. But the football in the Premier League, which has always been the biggest player on the block, certainly for the last 15, 20 years, is facing a different challenge now, and I'm not sure they've got the financial capability to withstand it.
£3 million a month for Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, you've obviously worked it out. I didn't, but yeah, that's a lot of money, isn't it? And I don't know what I think the tax. I don't think you pay tax on that.
No.
I don't think
you do.
No, exactly.
So it's the equivalent of earning about £6 million over here.
The wider context here as well is that something like a third of footballers earning really big money in the last 10 years have gone bankrupt within 4 years of finishing their career because they can't switch the tap off. Yeah. They can't adjust their lifestyle and their spending, even though the tap's been turned off in terms of the wage now. And realistically, they'll probably never earn that much money again. So when you get to a certain age, you can understand. I mean, how many people do you know who would turn down 4 times their salary for doing their job at a lesser level?
Well, exactly. Exactly. I tell you what, he could. I mean, if there's any sense, he could put. He could spend £1 million a month.
Yeah.
And put £2 million away.
Well,
I'm sure he'll struggle
just spend £1 million. Some people do spend £1 million a month. Don't they?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I know.
Absolutely
isn't
crazy.
that when you go from earning that level of money to nothing? How do you adjust your spending when you're used to spending £1 million a month?
But if you put it all away, if you put £2 million a month away.
Yeah, I suppose.
You've
got that luxury when you're earning 3, I suppose, isn't it? Three a month. Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
I could manage on £12 million a year, probably.
Could you?
It's a struggle.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Oh, can you imagine? I can't even. I mean, it's just stupid money. Stupid money.
It really is. Talking of stupid money, well, I think it's stupid money anyway. Man U takeover still rolling on, isn't it? With some pretty bonkers bids.
They put the club up for sale in November, Ellie, during the World Cup. I don't know whether that was strategic in terms of the timing. They knew that the focus would be elsewhere, but they've created a bidding war, which is what the Rain Group, they're the merchant bankers who were charged with the task of selling Manchester United. They created a bidding war, but we're still no closer, 1 month away from the start of the season. If you'd said this last November, Man United would still, the destination of the ownership of the club wouldn't be known until, by the time we got to mid-July, you'd say that was just nonsensical. I mean, it's a hugely valuable franchise for a start. Some people would say that franchise in English football is a dirty word anyway, but nonetheless, you know what I'm saying? It's a commercial entity, it's hugely profitable, and you have to wonder whether, given that the Glazers have decided they're going to go on the US tour with United tomorrow, and they're going to be visible, they're going to be front and centre. I know they live in the States as it is, but do they actually really want to sell this club? I mean, if I was... And then there's the issue of spending money on the players. Do you commit resources to the club when you think to yourself, well, we're selling this, so what are we spending money on it? Do you build an extension on your house when you know that you've got a buyer and you know you're going to sell the house in a month's time? I would probably say no. Having said that, if you just let it go to rack and ruin and don't improve it, you probably devalue it as well. But if I was in United, Liverpool got a different problem. They're getting their players raided by Saudi. Manchester United don't know who's going to own their club going forward. And, I think with a month to go till the season starts, I think it's a major worry for them.
Yeah. OK. Aidan, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks very much.
We've got lots still heading your way. All the newspapers very, very shortly. This is Breakfast on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
8:44, good morning. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And it's time to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning is editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, alongside writer Candice Holdsworth. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
And Candice, should we start with you? And the Mail. Oh, we're not starting with Candice? No.
Oh, we're not
Look
doing
like,
that.
like a line through that top one.
No.
No? Pardon me, Candice. We're going to go back to Tom. In the Telegraph, nuclear fusion plant is the Apollo moment for the UK.
This is actually Candice's story.
Yeah.
I believe.
Wow.
I know.
Have you got all are the names all mixed up on our list? Well, I'll tell you what, let's just... Who wants to talk about what, Candice? Off you go.
OK, so this is quite an interesting story. This is in the Telegraph. It's about a possible nuclear fusion plant that's going to be built in Nottinghamshire. It's going to be called STEP, and this is like the holy grail of energy, basically, is nuclear fusion.
Yeah.
It's totally clean. It produces huge amounts of energy. One of the big problems, though, is apparently it is quite difficult to build, so it will only be ready by 2040. But it's good to see some long-term planning because we haven't had enough of that in energy. I mean, we should have a lot more. We should have much more diverse energy sources, but we don't because, for instance, energy plants weren't built 10, 11 years ago because people thought it would take too long to come online. So it's good that there is long-term planning now.
Yeah, but we need to actually make nuclear fusion work first.
Yes, well, this is what they're saying. This is one of the tricky things.
They have done it, haven't they? But they've produced like a minute... Because it requires vast amounts of energy to be put in it to make it work. And they've only sort of once or twice actually managed to extract more energy than they put in.
Yes,
but
yes.
it's the first step.
Yes, yes, yeah. It would be transformative.
Oh,
though. I mean, it's an absolute game changer.
Mm.
So let's see. I think this is what we forget. You know, this is what Just Stop Oil gets so wrong: is the big changes and the things that are really going to make a difference. It's going to come from science, technology, and some law and some policy as well. But it's not going to be mindless activism. These are the people putting the real work in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
No, completely. And as you say, it's the holy grail, because the fact not only would this energy be kind of limitless and abundant, but also completely clean. It's one of those things where you think, particularly the environmental movement's relationship with nuclear has shown that this was never really just about climate change. They've kind of just got this aversion to modern society, to industrial society's kind of progress. They do have this kind of quite romantic idea that we should all go back to the land. But it's, and I think their relationship with nuclear is showing that. Now, a lot of environmentalists are starting to be a little bit more pro-nuclear. They've kind of realised it's got to be part of the picture. But the fact that they've been against it for so long, I think, just shows that these people are kind of just against progress, really. You know, they don't like the fact that society's gone a little bit too far in their view.
Yeah.
Tom, shall we look at one of your stories now, and the battle for Borisland?
Yeah, so it's right up in the Sun on Sunday about one of the by-elections next week, this one in Uxbridge in South Ruislip, Boris Johnson's former seat, which has become a really interesting race because, on the one hand, Labour would expected to walk it. I think his majority was down to under 10,000 at the last election, given the sort of change in demographics. Also because of the fact that, as we've been talking about, the Tory party is completely imploded. It's a by-election, turnout's going to be low, people will expect people to kind of issue a protest vote against the government. And yet Labour have still run into trouble because of the ULEZ scheme, because of the fact that this is a constituency that's right on the edge of Greater London. There's a lot of people who, in the reporting here and elsewhere, will say things like, you know, I run a market stall. A lot of people drive in from outside London to come and say that will end almost overnight. Large parts of their businesses just being shut down. The Labour Party have tried to kind of look both ways on this issue. The local candidate has said he wants it paused for now. You've even had Keir Starmer have to kind of row in behind him, which has created, obviously, friction with Sadiq Khan and City Hall. So it'll be interesting to watch. I would be amazed if Labour didn't win this seat. In so many ways, it should be handed to them on the platter, but it would be fascinating to see if it's a lot closer than might otherwise been, given the fact that you have, again, this very unpopular policy being imposed on people in that constituency.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch. Can we have a look at what's this in The Observer about the actor Jonah Hill?
Yeah, so this has been a big debate. Some people say it's really trivial. So his ex-girlfriend shared some texts that he'd sent her telling her he didn't like her posting pictures of herself in a bikini on Instagram and hanging around certain people. And opinion's been quite divided on it, saying that he was using the language of therapy to actually be quite manipulative, saying, these are my boundaries, I don't want you doing this. Whereas, you know, people have said you can't apply boundaries to other people's behaviour, you can only apply it to your own. Martha Gill, who's written this article, has said that she finds that very interesting, the way therapy speak has found its way into popular culture, and people sort of misuse it, and they use words like boundaries in the wrong context. Of course, many would say that, you know, Jonah Hill shouldn't have got all this attention, but I like the way that she focuses specifically on that, because there's so much online as well about mental health and, you know, dealing with, you know, various things. But a lot of it's just misinformation, and what is appropriate in a therapeutic setting isn't necessarily appropriate language to use in all your relationships in every context.
Yeah, well, look, it's an interesting point. I wouldn't really know that. I mean, I always find it fascinating that Americans everyone seems to have a shrink, a therapist, don't they, for everything? Everyone's got to talk everything out with a stranger.
Exactly, and I think there's a certain point in which that actually makes you worse off.
Yeah.
I think obviously there are people who will always need therapy. I think the problem is when you've got a therapeutic culture in which everyone is encouraged to think of themselves as kind of damaged, in need of help.
Yes.
It can often just become an outlet really just for narcissism, presenting itself as wellness, you know, and I think that's one thing that can become a big problem, particularly with how people navigate their own relationships, where, you know, it is about give and take, it is about negotiating one's boundaries or so on. But it's increasingly difficult to do that in an age in which you're constantly told to open up, constantly told to kind of stick to an ever-changing set of rules, as people would see it. It's such a minefield. And the fact that we're talking so openly about people's private lives, everything out in the open, doesn't seem to me to be particularly helpful.
But there was another article in Quillette which looked at this, which was saying the ever-expanding definition of trauma, where people are encouraged to believe that they've gone through very traumatic events that most people would never, ever really think was trauma. And it is creating this sort of like very self-involved, inward-looking, narcissistic victim culture, and it's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I just get on with it. I know some people need help. If you really need help, get help, but most of us just need to get on with it. I think, oh, maybe I'm being not very tolerant. I don't know. Tom, I love this. I love it when there's a bit of hypocrisy amongst people. The woman who decided to get in the way of George Osborne's wedding has been jetting off to Thailand.
Yeah, so just weeks before she did that stunt where she threw that orange confetti in a kind of... It seems like it was a stunt that was kind of in support of Just Stop Oil, but not necessarily organised by them. They've kind of distanced themselves. But she is a climate activist, and she's revealed to, just kind of weeks before this actual stunt, done a 10,000-mile round trip to Thailand. And this just keeps happening, where you scratch an environmentalist, find a hypocrite. They're, jetting halfway around the world whilst telling people they need to give up fossil fuels. And it's just, it's always that kind of sense of which these...
It's all do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. I think they just kind of see it as the little people have to follow these things, but they don't necessarily. And also,
they just count when it's them.
Yeah,
exactly. Because they care about the environment. When they actually do something like that, it doesn't count.
They're doing it for good reasons rather than bad reasons. And I think, but one thing that I think it's a nice reminder of is the fact that the world that these people claim they want to live in, where you don't go anywhere, we don't do anything, where your life is so kind of rooted to a very small place in which you live, even they don't want to live in it. So it's a nice reminder of that.
Well, it's interesting, because when you actually speak to these people, such as Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion, last time I was at one of their protests, I actually said that to them, the hypocrisy of them turning up in these petrol-guzzling vehicles, which they've got their placards in, which is exactly what we saw that morning. And they said they still have to exist in the systems that we have created as human beings. So they do their very, very best, but they are living in these systems that rely on things such as plastics and fossil fuels.
Convenient, isn't it?
It is convenient. Can we have a look at Blackpool, Candice? Daily Star Sunday, looking at psycho seagulls.
Yes, well, this was originally Tom's story, but I could talk a bit about it, unless you want to go for it, Tom.
Well, there's not a lot of detail here, but essentially Blackpool is being menaced by seagulls to an even greater degree than usual, and they're pointing out that they particularly seem to be targeting, I don't know how true that is, but they're targeting the elderly and the disabled. So seagulls are out of control. They're discriminatory as well.
They're discriminatory.
There's always a story about the seagulls.
It's ridiculous.
My go-to when I haven't got any light things to talk about.
Well, poor seagulls and pigeons. Everyone's always so horrible.
Poor seagulls.
Oh, no, I agree.
They deserve everything
I agree. There's loads of seagulls in Blackpool. There's loads of seagulls in Barry. You get used to it.
No, they're
not
threat.
awful. They're not a threat.
No, they're very threatening.
Chuck them a chip and get on with it.
No, because they don't just... they won't accept just one chip. They want to get into that bag and they want to swipe your ice cream.
Well, just bat them away.
No, they're dangerous.
They're not
and they're out of control.
Give over.
They are. They are.
They're targeting disabled people.
Exactly. It's a great worry.
It's in the newspaper, it must be true.
You live on the coast, back me up, please. It is a great worry. There are people, there are businesses...
Great worry.
...who are having to... Yeah, they are. You know, these ice cream shops that have to give away all the freebies because the seagulls keep nicking them.
In South Africa, you have baboons.
Oh.
They are the big pests.
Could be worse.
And they get into, like, little packs and they sort of outwit you, and they're very clever as well, and they can do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so what people do to sort of ward them off is they have, like, dogs, like big dogs and things like that. But honestly, like, they are cheeky. Oh. They will come up and they will, like, grab stuff off you, and you'll see them sat there eating a packet of crisps and stuff.
You see, so stop moaning about the seagulls. It could be a baboon. Tom, Candice, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let's get a check on the weather for you.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible, though, as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Read my superstar panel that already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 9 o'clock, Sunday the 16th of July. Today, another top Tory quits. The Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, leaving government at the next reshuffle, likely to be in September, and he's not going to stand at the next election.
Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has signed off on the UK's CPTPP membership. That's the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Rolls off the tongue. So how will this mouthful benefit our economy?
It's men's singles final day at Wimbledon. Could it be a day of history for 20-year-old Alcaraz?
And is it going to be another blustery day on the weather front?
Low pressure remains in control as we move into the second half of the weekend. Join me for the full weather forecast later to find out all the details.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I've got a mix. I don't want to talk about milk or wine.
Wine.
OK. Tom in South Lincolnshire says, I work nights full-time, so this is my evening, so I don't see a problem with having a wine after a long shift. Well, the person who got in touch saying they were having a drink was in New Zealand, so they had a bit more of an excuse. And Louise in a wet West Yorkshire says, I'm also having a glass of wine and a chicken pie. I finished my shift at 7 a.m, so this is my evening. Always love watching this show.
That. I never did that when I was on night shifts. I come home and hit the hay, But I do know people that treated it as their evenings. They'd watch a show, have a full hot meal, glass of wine, then take themselves to bed at about midday.
Best way. You readjust yourself like that,
Oh, no, it couldn't be me.
But it's not easy to do. It's hard. Night shifts are really hard. Back on the milk.
Back onto milk,
Because farmers are really struggling, as we know. I mean, farmers always really struggle, but all these milk prices coming down, actually, it's bad news for them. It's not the supermarkets losing any money on it, it's the farmers. Roger said, someone was saying, just get your milk delivered from the dairy. Roger says, full-fat milk is one of the best foods for good health. It doesn't cause heart problems. I don't know if that's right, cholesterol and all that, I don't know.
We'll have to share because I can't find any on milk. And John says, we in the Yorkshire Dales have bottled milk delivered to the door 3 times a week. Long may it continue. That's very good to support local if you can.
It does, and Terry in Worthing, because we're saying so many people drink this other milk now,
Alternative
don't they?
milk, yes.
Terry in Worthing says, those of us who consume plant milk do so not because we believe it is healthier than dairy milk, but because we abhor the immense violence and cruelty inherent in the dairy industry. I've got to say, Terry, I mean, I grew up around farms and farmers and dairy farmers. I don't recognise that. I've got to be honest, I do not recognise that.
Yeah, they love their animals, don't they? They love their cows. I know some dairy farmers in Dorset, and I don't know any harder-working people who love their animals. But do get in touch if you're a farmer this morning, especially a dairy farmer. We'd love to hear from you. gbnews@gbnews.com. Oh, I've got a nice one as well from Brian, another Brian, who says, we're having a full English, very jealous. We're watching the best breakfast show in the world. I think that's us. You're part of the family. Thank you. That's nice.
That's very nice.
That's what we aim for, Brian. That's what we aim for.
Michael's watching from Queensland in Australia. And Brian and Bev say, you two make me laugh. Hence, I've awarded you the best breakfast duo ever. Oh. That's official. But we'd like an award to go with our Trick Award for that, Brian and Bev. So if you want to get one of those knocked up and send it to us, that'd be lovely. I'm not joking either.
Yeah. Put it in the cabinet over there.
We will do, yeah. Now, should we talk politics?
Yeah, let's, because Ben Wallace is to step down as Defence Secretary after 4 years at the helm.
Yeah, in 4 years, he served under 3 Prime Ministers. And he has overseen Britain's withdrawal from Afghanistan and, of course, our role in Ukraine, the largest conflict in Europe since the Second World War.
But it does represent yet another Conservative MP abandoning ship, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's get the lowdown from Camilla Tominey, who's going to be here with her show at 9:30 this morning. And, this is an interesting one, because he's such a senior figure and a well-respected figure that whatever his reasons for going, it's a blow to Cabinet.
It's a massive blow, and it's a blow to Rishi Sunak, because he's basically saying, look, I was going to quit in any reshuffle anyway, but there is a war going on in Ukraine. The threat from China has been written about in today's papers by none other than Ian Duncan-Smith. So actually now what we've got until there is a reshuffle is almost a lame duck Defence Secretary at a time of great jeopardy for the world. And I think that's not to overplay it. the other thing is about Ben Wallace is 5 minutes ago he was being touted as a future Prime Minister. I think all of the right-leaning websites like Conservative Home and things, they've got Kemi Badenoch up there, but they also saw Wallace as a safe pair of hands. He's obviously a major Boris backer. I think there is a number of reasons for this. I mean, he's one of quite a few experienced Tories jumping ship ahead of what probably does look like it might be a disastrous general election come 2024.
He's not got a big majority, has he?
He hasn't got a big majority. We've got people going in and telling the Tories that if they've got 15,000 or less majorities, then they may be doomed. His seat is being swallowed up in the boundary review. He was offered 5 alternative safe seats and rejected them. But some of the rhetoric in this interview is given to the Sunday Times. I mean, he's talking about how he'd rather work in a bar than be an MP. That could also be a sign of the times. MPs get a lot of abuse. It's very difficult for them. He cites family issues. I know when he was touted as leader, he basically said, look, I couldn't do that to my family. He's also expressing regret that he's put work ahead of family matters. This could be multi-layered, but at the same time, it's not a great look for the Prime Minister to have somebody so senior and so well-known effectively be jumping ship. I mean, Rishi Sunak's talking about kind of being the captain that's kind of stabilising the ship through choppy waters, but the general consensus is the ship is sinking. There's nothing he can do but start trying to get water out from this sinking ship. So we've got Nigel Huddleston on today, which is good, except I'm going to have to keep on saying, Ellie, CPTPP.
CPTPP, yeah.
I'm just going to call it the trade deal, if nobody minds.
No.
I'm just going to refer to it as the trade deal.
No, you'll upset Tom Harwood. Did you see before? He was very rude to us.
Was he? Why?
About that. And then he sent me a WhatsApp message since, isn't it?
CPTPP. CPTPP.
CPTPP.
CPTPP.
Right,
Showing
fine.
off.
I'm still going to call it the trade deal. But I'm going to ask the Trade Minister, you know, does this make up for the trade that we've lost from the EU? But I'm also obviously going to ask him, how's Rishi Sunak going to cope with this? Again, his 5 deliverables appear to have been lost in the post. We now read in the papers that he might not make this pledge on debt, reducing the debt. So he's not making any of these pledges, guys. This is not great. Meanwhile, we've got Starmer out and about today. He's told the Observer that he doesn't want Labour to go back to sort of tax and spend. And his point is, I think, I don't need to say much. I don't need to put much of a policy platform out because actually I can just watch the Tories implode from afar and sweep in. Although I think that our viewers and listeners would like a little bit more substance over sound bites.
Well, they would. They would. And I totally get that. And as hacks, we want to see that too. But if you're looking at it from a strategic point of view, the less he says, the better, from his perspective, because then he can't cock it up.
A couple of other plugs for the show. You saw me give my Q&A to Moz Hussein last week. Didn't go well for him. Wasn't able to answer straight yes-no questions. So we're going to see if Susan Hall, who's his competitor for Mayor of London, she's the other Tory candidate, can answer some straight questions. I mean, it's not that much to ask, is it, guys, of could you answer a straight question with a straight answer? So we'll be speaking to her. I've also done a fascinating interview with Neil Coyle. Do you remember Neil Coyle got suspended from Parliament for 5 days, I think, in March, because he basically launched into this foul-mouthed and drunken rant against a journalist and a parliamentary staffer, used racist language towards this Anglo-Chinese journalist. Anyway, he contacted me in the week to say, I'm 500 days sober. He's given up drinking. He does blame the drink on his behaviour. So I've got quite an intimate sit-down with that Labour MP as well on the show.
And you've got Mark Francois on the show as well.
Well, Mark Francois has done this report into defence procurement. Doesn't make for really great reading. He basically says our procurement system is broken and we are inadequately defended against Russia and China. So again, good news on the governmental front, but I'm going to be asking Mark as well. Does he think that the Tories have got any hope of winning any of these by-elections this week?
Camilla, we shall see you at 9:30.
Looking forward to
Give Tom Harwood a hard time when he
I will.
Thanks, Camilla. Packed show, lots to look forward to.
Now, extreme heat continues to affect southern Europe, with the Italian health ministry issuing red alerts for 16 cities across the country.
Well, the alerts, which indicate risks even for healthy people, apply to tourist hotspots, including Rome and Florence.
Earlier, we spoke to Jim Dale from British Weather Services, and we asked him just how dangerous this really is.
The Barcelona Health Institute did a study and they came out with the fact that around 60,000 people were affected by the heat and sadly died last year. So this is now becoming how can I put this, the new abnormal, because it's abnormal. Yeah, that's where we are. When you get to these situations, they're taking stock, they're taking the measures they should take, the health measures for the population. It won't be everybody within that population that is going to suffer, and it's essentially going to be the vulnerable people, the elderly, the very young, the people who have problems with heat. But once you get into the 40 to 50 degree mark, which is where it's going to be, for example, in Rome today, we're expecting around 43, 44 degrees, which is higher than what we achieved last year in our peak period. Then, yeah, our health practitioners very much say that you're on a losing wicket as far as your health is concerned, and you have to take the steps. So this is what that government is doing. It's the right step. It's not the only place in Europe and or the world at this moment in time that is going through this heat barrier. I know we're not going in the UK, nothing like after yesterday, but nonetheless, it's in several of the continents, so it's not alone. The record is 56.7, which is a little bit of a dubious record. It was taken in 1913 in a place called Furnace Creek, a ranch out there somewhere. So 1913. However, we're probably going to see places like Las Vegas. I think there was a record, I can't remember where it was, that went yesterday in that area. So those areas around California, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, they've been boiling for some time, and they're going to continue to do so. Now, I'm going to join some dots for you here. So we've talked about Europe to a degree, but it is Southern Europe, the Mediterranean, everything from Spain through southern France down to across Italy, Sardinia, Corsica, Turkey, and then North Africa. So there's two continents there, Europe and Africa. Then we got Asia. Records went there yesterday. The record there is 54 degrees in Iran, but we may well see, I think we saw a 50 in China yesterday. And if we start to join these dots, so that's North America, Africa, Asia, Europe, they're all into the 50s for the records, and probably we will see close to, if not breaking those records. Algeria has already seen the 50 degrees. Then join the dots. That's called climate change. It's not the fact that these places don't get hot weather in the summertime at peak. Of course they do. We know that. That's what people go for their holidays for. But it's the add-on. That's what climate change does. It actually adds on several degrees in these cases. And when you get it happening all together across the globe, then something's going on.
Do you know what? For the first time ever, I think, I actually feel sorry for people who've got a holiday booked in the next week or so, if you're in Southern Europe.
Yeah.
Very, very hot. Very, very difficult for them. Do stick with us. Lots more to come, including Showbiz with our lovely Stephanie.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. It's been quite an impressive break, hasn't it? You sniffed up a fly.
I can taste it now.
We do
A fruit fly. Yes, I sniffed
we seem to have... There's no fruit in here at all, but there does seem to be a fruit fly infestation. So you snorted a couple in the break.
Work that one out. Yeah, it hasn't been dull this morning. It's been many things, but not dull. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, because we've had a lovely time.
We've had a great time. I don't know about you.
And it's only set to continue, isn't it? We've got Showbiz.
You know why? Yeah, because Stephanie Tetch's here. Good morning. Morning. Let's have a bit of Rod Stewart, shall we?
I love a good news story, and this has been one of my favourite Showbiz stories of the weekend. We know Rod Stewart is a giver, like he's donated so much to the NHS, previously helping with medical scans. In the Daily Record newspaper, they had a section where they were getting young people to write about what their dreams and desires are for the future, and a young girl had written in and said that she hoped in the future that there would be food or beef for free and people wouldn't have to pay. And she was inspired by that because her mother is living below the poverty line, and you know, with this cost of living crisis, she's been depending on food banks. And so she written this heartbreaking letter, which we do have a bit of an image of. And Rod Stewart read the piece, the letter, and he donated £2,500.
Oh, wow.
To the family, which the family are really touched by, and they said it really does make a difference. Sophia's mum is a single mum of 4, so she said to have that kind of money during this time is really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, it will be. Well, it's nice when these people who've got plenty...
I know, because, you know, most of these celebs have a lot of money. You know, even with these actors' strikes, you know, some of these actors are getting a lot of criticism because they're not donating money to actors who can, that they can help.
Oh, it's so lovely, isn't it? He comes across as such a nice man, doesn't he, Rod Stewart? I'll tell you who comes across as a really nice woman, actually, is Cheryl Cole. She's always got time for her fans. Yes!
Well, Cheryl, we can't call her Cheryl. We can't call her Cheryl.
Sorry, just Cheryl. I will scribble out the name.
She went from Cole to something else to Vanana Vasquez.
Well, you're very accostish.
No, she's just Cheryl now.
She's just Cheryl.
She's lost track of... What is her surname?
She's an actress now.
Cheryl Tweedy. That's her original name. But I don't know why she dropped the Tweedy, actually, because it's like, it's your maiden name, so... You should go back to that.
Go back to your roots. But she is going to stick to being an actress now.
She is. She had a fantastic run in the West End in the play 222. I actually saw her. I was right front row, and I thought she did a really good job.
Really?
And she wants to keep up with the acting. She's only done a few bits here and there, but she doesn't want to do it for theatre or for film. She actually wants to do a drama podcast series, which will be quite interesting. And it's quite brave of her, because it was only in, like, 2021 she had a podcast series with the BBC. It was the R&B one, which only lasted one season, and she was getting a lot of flack about that because a lot of people didn't think she was the right person or expert to host an R&B show. So I think for her to have a drama podcast series, she could have a lot more fun, I think.
I suppose the thing with something like this is that she doesn't need to get... You know, she just does it herself.
Yeah.
You don't have to get someone to agree to take her on.
No, and I think she's already working with quite a few production companies on this. And the thing I like about radio, as our listeners will know, is like it's it's not over evasive for you in that sense. You could just have it on in the background. She's got a lovely accent, so I'm sure it'll really do well for her.
So is it going to be a little bit like an audiobook, like what Stephen likes?
Yeah.
So she'll be the narrator and she'll read the dramatic tale.
Which I think will suit Cheryl, actually, because I think a lot of people are always concerned about how she looks and whatever, and I think she just takes that away and you can just listen to her. But she hasn't released what the plot's going to be, so I think we've got a bit of a wait.
Would you listen to Cheryl before bed?
No.
Oh, why?
No, well, I'm not into the podcasts and all that sort of thing. I don't do podcasts.
Oh, I thought
you're missing out.
Yeah.
No, they might be, but is it...
You could have a podcast for your poetry.
Is it a generational thing?
It is a generational thing, but I think once you get into podcasts, they're really addictive.
They are.
And you just want to listen to episode after episode.
If you like audiobooks, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
It's just... This is done in episodes.
Yeah, but you see, I'm liking my Tom Clancy's at the moment, and not Cheryl's.
Cheryl.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think it would be for me.
No, okay.
But that's all right. For some people. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, it would seem Barbie isn't for everyone.
No, Barbie isn't for everyone. Well, not for children under 12, unfortunately. The British Board of Film Classification has rated the film 12A, because there's a few themes in there. There's a couple of swear words, a couple of scenes of sexual harassment that they don't think will be suitable for young audience. As parents out there, they're really thinking about whether this is the right move or not, because Barbie... Kids as young as 3 can have a Barbie doll, so you can imagine around the movie a lot of kids are excited to think that they can see it, but now with this classification it kind of limits people on that.
Can they go with if parents allow? Is that one of these?
Yeah, parental guidance. Yeah, I think parents can take their children, but again, it's some of the issues that comes up in the film whether parents feel like they would want their children to be exposed to that.
I mean, they might not get it.
No, I don't think they will. I think they'll just be too caught up in seeing Barbie.
Yeah.
So, I think it's each to their parents' discretion.
Yeah, oh well, it'll be interesting
But it's a feel-good film anyway. I'm going to watch it tomorrow.
I'm so jealous of you.
I can't wait. I already got my pink dress ready.
I was about to say, outfit ready?
Wearing pink.
Good.
Oh,
and pink shoes too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's just all pink.
So is this a media special?
Yes, it is a media special preview. I should have been at the premiere last week, actually. I just felt like that was a bit of a fail. But no, I'm going to see the screening.
What, a fail from them?
Yeah. But welcome to my invite.
Yeah. You should have been on that list.
I know. I should have been on the VIP
I would have
list.
liked to have been on that list.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened yet.
It's not often a Barbie film comes out, Stephen.
No.
Well, no, it isn't. First time ever, I would have thought. I don't know. It's weird. I find it very, very odd because it's interesting and I'm sort of intrigued by it, even though
it's because the promo's been so good. It's everywhere.
On the surface, I'm just like, why would I want to go and see a film about Barbie?
Oh my gosh, you should be my +1 tomorrow with a pink shirt.
Yeah, sadly,
Stephen and Stephanie do both.
Yeah, we could do, couldn't we? Sadly, I can't do it. Do you use when you go to the supermarket?
Yeah.
Do you go to a till?
Yeah.
For chit-chat with a person on the till, or do you self-scan?
I go to the till because I love a chat with people, cashiers. Sometimes it just feels, even though it's quicker to do the scan, I like to feel like I'm keeping people in a job by actually having that interaction.
You're a good person.
Tim says, I use tills to have a chat with the staff. I have some of the best chats I've ever had while using a manned till.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's the way of the world. Stephanie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll see you on... I'm back on Thursday, actually.
Yeah.
And then we're back together on Friday.
And Camilla Tominey's up next.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Low pressure is still firmly in control as we head into the second half of the weekend, but it is gradually pushing its way off towards the north. That will allow those isobars to widen slightly across southern areas of the UK. So winds are a touch lighter here compared to yesterday. It is still going to be quite breezy across eastern coastal areas and up into central areas of Scotland. More persistent rain continuing throughout western Scotland. Further to the east might see some thunderstorms developing. Elsewhere, there will also be some heavy showers at times, but some sunshine in between that as well, climbing to highs of around 21 to 22 degrees Celsius. Into the evening, some of those showers will fade their way off, but we could see some persisting into western coasts of England and Wales, also into the far north of Northern Ireland, but more persistently throughout the night, continuing on and off across many areas of Scotland. Temperatures generally falling down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but with lighter winds tonight, we might just drop into single figures in some rural spots. Many of us on Monday then will again see a day of scattered showers and sunny spells. The heaviest of these potentially developing across eastern areas as we move into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder also possible here, but noticeably the winds will be lighter across the southern half of the UK compared to the weekend. The breeze just still continuing across the northeast, temperatures ranging between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. There are further showers and longer spells of rain possible though as we head towards the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the victory, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about